So, as usual, we gathered here today to listen to another dispensation of the Lord Buddha's teaching. Before we commence our sermon today, let us all take a moment to remind ourselves that it is because of the Supreme One, the Supremely Enlightened One, the Perfect One, the Omniscient One, the Infinitely Compassionate One, that we have the gift of Dhamma today. It is because of His selfless dedication throughout samsara towards the liberation of all sentient beings that we are privileged enough to be in receipt of this Dhamma. Bearing that in mind, let us all take a moment to pay homage to the Gautama Supreme Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And also, before we begin, let us all take a moment to observe the precepts, bearing in mind, as I always remind you, that we find ourselves in this situation where we are having to observe these precepts, and this is because our virtue is not still part of the very fabric of our conscience. In the hope and determination that may this have to be the last time I have to observe these precepts, and may the virtue entailed within these precepts be part and parcel of my own conscience, let us all take a moment to observe them. In order to do so, I ask you all to repeat all together and after me. Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Dutiyampi sanghaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Tatiyampi sanghaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Saranagamanaṃ sampunnaṃ, Pānātipātā veramani sikkhapaдаṃ samadhiyāmi, Adinādāna veramani sikkhapaдаṃ samadhiyāmi, Kāmesu micchāchārā veramani sikkhapadaṃ samadhiyāmi, Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadaṃ samadhiyāmi, Surāmera majjapamādatthāna veramani sikkhapadaṃ samadhiyāmi, Tisaranena saddhiṃ pañcasīlaṃ dhammaṃ sādhukaṃ surakkitaṃ kattvā appamādena sampādetabbam. Okay, you may now all be seated. Most Venerable members of the Mahasangha, distinguished gathering, those of you who have joined here in person as well as those who are listening in online. Before we commence the sermon, as usual, let us take a moment to invite all the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead, our ancestors who have predeceased us, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, nephews, nieces and grandparents and so on and so forth, our colleagues, those who will have helped us or been part of our lives in any way, shape or form. No matter where they may be today, this is our opportunity to repay those debts that we owe them, to pass on the gift of Dhamma that excels all gifts. This is an opportunity for us to invite them such that they may be able to come and witness this meritorious deed and rejoice in the merits that we are all about to acquire. So in that hope and determination and prayer in mind, let us all take a moment to invite all the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead. Wherever they may be they be able to join us. May they be able to witness this meritorious deed and through those merits be able to redeem themselves from those woeful planes that they might have been born in and be born in the blissful planes. And may through the power of these merits they be able to redeem themselves from the shackles of samsara. So as I now make this invitation, I request you all to extend that invitation in your hearts and in your minds out to all those beings in 10,000 world systems. May they join us, may they witness this meritorious deed, may they listen to the Dhamma and may they accomplish the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Sadhammam Munirajansa Sunantu Sagga Mokkadam Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta. Also, before we commence, let us all take a moment to reflect on the fact that we are very different people compared to who we used to be, and this is because of the Dhamma, because the Dhamma has touched our lives. But then, reflecting on who we might have been in this infinitely long journey in samsara, as well as contemplating on who we used to be, the personalities and the characteristics that we used to possess before we had any refuge in the Dhamma. In that mindset and having associated with immoral, ignoble people who defiled our minds with raga, dvesha, moha, desire, aversion and delusion, countless and innumerable will be the times in which we will have offended, abused and desecrated the noble ones, Samma Sambuddhas, the Pacheka Buddhas, Arahata Buddhas, Anagamis, Sakrudagamis, Sotapannas, be they on the path of having attained the fruits, as well as the Buddha's ministry, the Sambuddha Shasana. And any deeds, words or actions or thoughts that we might have directed towards them of abuse and slander may today hinder our progress in the Dhamma. And therefore, before we begin, let us all take a moment to genuinely and humbly accept that this is who we will have been, and all take a moment to seek forgiveness from the noble ones for any words, thoughts or actions of abuse and slander that we might have directed towards them. And finally, let us all make a firm resolve that may through the course of this sermon, if there are any gaps in your understanding which have so far and to date kept you from attaining the noble achievements, or achieving the noble attainments rather, may through the course of this sermon you be able to fulfill those gaps. And if there are any among you who have already attained the state of Sotapanna, may through the course of this sermon you be able to fulfill the subsequent stages and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. With that firm resolve and determination in mind, I invite you all to prepare yourselves to listen to this sermon. whenever we attempt to do something, for there to be any hope of achieving success, first, we must all have a clear vision. We must have a crystal clear idea of what our goal has to be. This is basic goal setting. You'll all have done that in some aspects of your lives. Because without a goal, you're just walking blind. Without a clear vision, you don't know where you're heading. Also, without a clear vision and without a goal, you are at the mercy of those who may or may not be willing to help you. Because remember, even a Kalyana Mitra is not there with you forever. Because if they are, then they're not a Kalyana Mitra. Why is that? Well, they should be working on their own salvation. If there's a Kalyana Mitra who promises you, I will be with you forever in your next birth and the birth after that, until you attain Nibbana, I'll be there with you, you've got to check again. Chances are, they're not who they claim to be. Because a Kalyana Mitra is someone who has made a firm resolve to redeem themselves from samsara. So if they have any hope of being around with you to catch the same bus, to see you through, chances are they haven't found their destination or seen their goal yet themselves. So how can one help you when they haven't helped themselves yet? So you will be at their mercy if you haven't got a vision set out for yourself. This is why this is so important. And this is why whenever you come here, we always talk to you about this Nyaya Dhamma, the doctrine. Because you have to be able, you have to be capable of applying the Dhamma for yourself. I have no hope or wish to keep seeing you every day, sincerely. And that's not because I don't like the look of you. That's because if I were to wish that let us meet forever, we are a happy family, then run away. Don't come back. If you ever hear me say that, don't come here again. What I'm trying to do is to help you fly on autopilot. None of us can be sat next to you and help you drive your cart or ride your plane every day. You've got to be able to do that yourself. So your resolve should be, may that day come as soon as possible. That is what you should work towards. The day where you can get to your goal, fulfill your ambition, get to Nibbana without someone always having to be there. If someone's there, then that's great. It's great if you've got someone there throughout your journey, but you have to become independent. Because the Dhamma has to be your teacher. The Kalyana Mitra has to be born within your own mind. That's when you know you have become a Sotapanna. Otherwise, you'll always be at the mercy of someone to help you get there. And for that to happen, you have to have a clear vision of where you're going. You need to know what you're trying to achieve. You need to know how to get there. All these things you need to know. We can help you figure that out. But you have to become independent. Soon. Pretty soon. I cannot tell you how long I'll be here. I might be the first to pass away out of all of us. I have no guarantee that Guru Hamdro is going to be with me throughout my journey. So it is my resolve to be able to become independent as soon as possible, so that I can fulfill my journey without him having to be by my side. If he's there by my side, fantastic. But I can't. There's no guarantee. Is there? There's no guarantee. So we have to learn to fly solo as soon as possible, ASAP. So your purpose of coming here, ladies and gentlemen, should be to be able to learn to fly solo, to go on autopilot. So every day you come here, you have to ask yourself the question, how close are you to that goal? Simple ways to check that. If you have missed one or two sermons, are you finding that you keep defaulting back to your old ways? If a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, right, you fail to turn up to the sermons, for whatever reason, are you finding that you're going back to the person you used to be? Are you getting angry like you used to? Are you being desirous of those things that you used to, but you thought they were all gone? You thought you'd cleansed your mind of all those defilements, but that was only because what you were doing was Vishkambana Prahan. For a duration of time, you are able to suppress those defilements. This is like coming to the petrol station. You come here, get your tanks filled up, and then the rest of the week you run on the fuel. By the time you've exhausted all that, you come back for another shot. So for as long as you keep coming, you get your medicines, you get your fuel, you get your replenishments, but then through the course of the week, you exhaust them. And then if you fail to come the next week or the week after, just think about how you find yourself. There must have been occasions in which you failed to turn up regularly. So what was your mindset like during those weeks? Did you go back to your old ways? Some of you might have resolved, I'm not going to watch TV again. I'm not saying that's either wrong or right. That's not for me to decide. Some of you may have such ambitions or determinations. Maybe you've got a TV at home, but you've resolved to, I'm not going to watch TV again, because what's the point? You made that decision, but did it last the test of time? You came a week, you thought, right, I'm not going to watch TV again. You came the next week, yep, still don't want to watch TV again. Third week, you couldn't make it. Next week, you couldn't make it. Let's just see what's on TV, just for a few minutes. That's how it starts. Ask yourself, just look at your own self. I've always said, don't worry about looking out the window. Look in the mirror. You'll see all your problems and you'll also see all the answers. Just look in the mirror. Because therein lies the biggest problem in your life. In the mirror. How many of them are there in the mirror? How many can you see in the mirror? One. But if you look out the window, how many can you see? Countless. Throughout samsara, this is the problem. Throughout samsara, we've learned to look outside. We've learned to look out there to find answers to our problems. The house was on fire. We are looking out there to put out the fire. The house is on fire, but you're looking out there. You're looking out the window. All you had to do was turn 180 degrees, and voila, there's the problem. But we fail to do that. This is what we are accustomed to. Looking out there, looking outside, looking for other people, looking for other things to make us happy. Some of you have asked me, what's this rising and passing away, rising, I still don't get that, Swami. So please, can you explain it? I will. As we call it, the arising and passing away business. Don't worry. Good that you have these questions. Because it's when you grasp that, that's when you realize there is simply no point looking out the window. Because the problem's with me. You know, even I, growing up, when we were taught impermanence, that's what I learned in Dhampasa. I look at the world as being impermanent. I was taught to look at material things as being impermanent. And that was good, it helped me in some ways. Because they said, right, your parents, your loved ones, all these physical things that you have an attachment to, they're going to pass away someday. They're going to die. People are going to die, right? You're going to lose these things. Something might be a fire, might be a thunderstorm, whatever, right? Some things will happen and you will lose them. What's going to happen to you then? So that was the answer to which there was an obvious, that was the question to which there was an obvious answer. Well, of course, I'm going to be sad when that happens. It's going to make me really unhappy. So that's how I learned to think. Don't attach to these things out there, because one day you're going to lose them. One day they're going to die. One day they're going to be destroyed. And that day you're going to be unhappy. So it was a case of waiting for that to happen. So right now there is no problem. Why? Because it's fine for the time being. So they said, don't attach yourself to your mother. Why? Because one day she's going to die. What about now? Now it's alright. For as long as she's with you, there's no problem. But one day she's going to die. Therefore, you don't know when it's going to happen. So, don't attach. But for now, it's fine. You can be happy with her. Isn't that how we all started to make this approach to the Dhamma? That's how we were all taught to think. Right? One day you're going to lose it. One day your pet cat's going to die. One day you're going to lose all your money. So don't attach. One day your house is going to come falling down. One day London Bridge is going to fall down. So, be careful, don't attach. But what about now? Now it's fine. For now it's alright. It's fine now. It's just that one day. So suffering was in the future. Suffering's not in the present then. Suffering's in the future. It will come one day. Just wait. Be patient. So then, people have questions. Particularly younger people. Right? They say, well, Swaminas, I want to get married. So, what's the problem with that? Well, one day she's going to die. When you're old, right? She's going to die. Or she's not going to look as good as she is looking today in 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years time. So then this guy gets a smart idea. He says, well, that's going to be in 20 years time, she's going to be grown old, right? Yes. Well, when that time comes, I'll do an upgrade. When she's old, and when she's not got her good looks anymore, I'll just do an upgrade. Like you go to the phone shop and do an upgrade. So the problem was always in the future. So what people did then was prepare themselves for the future. This is like retirement planning. Because the problem's going to come in the future, right? This is why you do retirement planning. So you save up a pension pot so that when the day comes you can't look after yourself, or when there's no one to look after you, when you have no income, you have a pension pot on which you can rely. So likewise, we were taught to prepare yourself for the inevitable, the one day suffering that's going to come. So just prepare yourself. So then we learned, so how do we face this problem? Let's earn some money. Because when you have lots of money, money can buy a lot of things. Money can buy people, after all. There's very few things money can't buy. Right? Money can buy lots of things. In your experience, what do you think? Yes or no? Money can buy lots of things. So what we did was we saved a lot of money. Because one day, all the things I'm attached to, all the things I like and all the things I love, they're going to be destroyed, they're going to pass away, they're going to die. So what I have to do is, when that day comes, spend some money and get a new one. Get a new car, get a new house, get a new wife, right? All these things you can get with money. What's a dowry after all? It's buying a wife, isn't it? So money can buy lots of things. So we then began to think of life as being, let's just prepare for the future that's going to be coming. And so therefore we found an answer in money. Now to earn lots of money, of course money don't go on trees. So therefore you have to work hard for it. Therefore we aspire to get ourselves good jobs. Get into good employment. Well-paid jobs were sought after. And to get there you need a good education. I'm talking about your past. This is how life turned out for you. Tell me if I'm wrong. Because if we both lived on the same planet, then this is what we both will have done. So we got a good education, and a good education was a solid guarantee that you would get a good job, right? And then a good job was going to give you good money, and the good money was going to solve all those problems, the one-day problems. One day in the future problems. They were going to solve all those problems. So this is why I invested a lot of time in my life to solving that one day problem. Let's fix today so that in the future we won't have that problem. But this system is flawed. Because the Buddha does not talk about a one-day problem. He talks about the problem right now. If what I'm talking to you sounds foreign, sounds like Greek, then you still need to understand. There's still more that needs to be understood. So we'll talk about that. It's okay. This is what we need to figure out. Because Buddhist philosophy is here to help us solve a problem that no money in the world can do. Not all the money in the world, not all the education, not all the qualifications can solve this problem for you. And the problem is wholly internal. The problem is you. You know how when people break up relationships? Hey, I hate to break it to you, right? But I think it's time we went our own ways. But it's not you, it's me. That's the easiest thing to say, right? It's not you, it's me. No, you're fine, it's just me, I just need more time. It's me. You were right. It was you. It still is you. It never was the other person. You probably weren't saying that sincerely back then. You actually did mean, no, it's you, I just can't say it to your face. But you were right when you said, it's me, not you. When people have a tough marriage life, what do people resort to? This is a lovely word called divorce. Because they think when they divorce, all the wars go away. Divorce. But people go about divorcing the wrong thing, that's the problem. It's not the wife that ever brought you problems. It's not the husband that brought you problems. People divorce the wrong thing. When it's attachment, you have to divorce. People try to divorce a person, and they expect the problem to go away. Until you figure out, until you work out, until you completely and comprehensively understand, it's my attachment that brings me suffering. Time and time again. You will forever be trying to solve a problem that does not exist. This is the problem. Trying to solve a problem that does not exist. And all the time you're spending trying to solve a problem that does not exist, the real problem still prevails. So it's a two-pronged problem. Not only are you not trying to solve the real problem, but you're also trying to solve the problem that does not exist. It's double trouble. Solving a problem that does not exist, because there's no problem in the outside world. The problem's with you, and you're not solving that either. We were never taught to think of life in that way. We were never taught to look internally. When were you taught at school? The problem is with you. Why did we learn science? Why did we learn math? Why did we learn technology? Why did we learn sociology? Because the problems out there. Fix those problems. How does one do service to their countrymen? By solving their problems. How? Go and talk to them, ask them what problems do you have, and then they'll tell you, oh, this guy, that guy, this guy, the nation, the economy, the taxes, these are my problems. Now go and try and solve those problems. That's not service. The only real way to solve a problem is to help that person understand that, hey, mister, the problem's with you. But do people like to hear you say that? No one likes to accept that the problem's with me. Because everyone in their mind, in their own self thinks that they're perfect. People like to think, I'm fine. It's you. Don't talk to me like that. Why? I'm fine. It's just the way you talk. That's where the problem is. Change that color. Why? I don't like that t-shirt. Why? Because the color that I like, that's the right color to like. That's the only color that anyone should like. I don't know why you like that color. I mean, it's just stupid to like that color. The color that I like now, that's the color that everyone should like. We went about life digging our own graves, ripping ourselves apart. Because the thing is, until you come across noble companionship, until you come across the Dhamma, no one ever tells us, look internally. Be an introvert, look inside. Look inside for the problem. Find the real problem. Because the day you do that, all you have to do is look in the mirror and you will see one problem. There's only one person in the mirror. But look in the window, countless. Every man and his dog, every Tom, Dick and Harry is a problem when you're looking out the window. But when you're looking in the mirror, there ain't no Tom, there ain't no Dick, and there ain't no Harry. It's whoever you are. That's who the problem is with. But we fail to do that time and time again. This is why we came into the karma worlds. This karma loke. I reminded you last week, if you remember now. Anytime that we seek pleasure in material things, you will have to come into the karma world. If you find this flower beautiful, if you still find that a slice of pizza is yummy, and if you die right now, I can guarantee you'll be back in the karma world. If you like the smell of a flower, I'll guarantee you'll be back in the karma world. If you like how your fabric feels against your body, I will give you a guarantee you will be back in the karma world. I cannot guarantee in what shape you will be back, whether you'll be walking on 2 legs or 4, but you will be back in the karma world. That much I can tell you. For as long as you seek pleasure in material objects, you will be back in the karma world. We had this problem with extremists recently in our country, right? Bombs going off and all this problem. What were they hoping to achieve? What was their philosophy? The extremists. Take as many lives as possible, and that is the path to salvation. That's what they believe. How does that affect you? What is it that you have that they seek? You're a living, breathing person. Did you ever see any of them going and putting on suicide vests and jumping into mortuary? There's lots of the bodies there as well. Why didn't they jump into mortuary? They're not living, breathing things. You have a body and they want it. Not to take it home with them, but to sever the head from the rest of it. That's what they wanted your body for. Again, they sought pleasure in material things. Now the problem that you have is you also want this body. So they want it and you want it, now there's a competition. So you say, hey, how dare you, this is my body. This is mine. And they say, well, I need it. If you're not going to give it to me and I ask you nicely, then I'm going to have to use other means for it. Ultimately, both you and they are seeking a physical object because they think doing something to this physical object is what is going to bring me pleasure. So you try to save this physical object and they try to destroy it. But ultimately, both of these people, you and they, are interacting with a physical, material object. You have to save it, they've got to destroy it. But they don't have any wars like this in the Brahma worlds. Even in the Deva worlds, Devas and Asuras, they're always in conflict. They have wars in the Deva worlds. Did you know that? You would take the Pirit Pota. In the Pirit Pota there are at least 2 or more sutras in which the Devas come in front of the Buddha and they complain, Venerable Sir, I need to find recluse, I need to find refuge. The Asuras are coming after me, please save me. They come begging in front of the Buddha. And it's the Buddha then preaches the Dhamma to this person, to this Deva, who then becomes an Upasaka. One who has taken refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. And then the Buddha says to the Asuras, leave this guy alone, and that is an order. At which, this is an order that comes from the Buddha, and therefore these Asuras tremble at his words. Because if you don't follow an order given by the Buddha, then the consequences are dire. So they refrain from what they were about to do. So even in the Kama worlds, even the Deva worlds, which is part of the Kama worlds, they're also fighting for physical objects, material things. And the reason for that is because they seek pleasure in material things. You know, folks, if you are able to detach yourself, if you are able to sever your attraction, your attachment to physical things, that in itself is your passport to the Brahma worlds. You will no longer have to suffer in the Kama worlds. That's the next best thing to Nibbana. Not as good as, but the next best thing. Because if you are able to achieve that state, you have become an anagami person. One who no longer has any attractions to physical objects. The reason that you have a body is because if you want to interact with a physical object, then you need another physical thing. This is why you have a physical body that can interact with a physical object. If you want to sense touch, now you want to touch this, you need to have a physical object, a hand or a finger or whatever, to touch another physical object. If you want to smell something, then again, these are the molecules in the air which have to come and touch or come into contact with the sensors in your nose. If you want to taste something, then the molecules in the food have to come into contact with the receptors on your tongue. So these physical connections have to happen. The day you stop seeking pleasure in sound, in smells and tastes and touch, is the day where you have become an anagami person. You no longer seek pleasure in smells, in tastes and touch. That's not to say you no longer take smell or taste or touch. You will still make use of them, but you will no longer seek pleasure in them. To do that, to get to that stage, you need to understand what pleasure is. Without a solid understanding of what pleasure is, you will not realize the futility of it. The meaningless, essenceless nature of it, you can't figure it out without understanding what it is in the first place. This is where the arising and passing away business matters. Because no matter what sensations come to us from the outside world, for our mind to be able to perceive them, we have to be able to interpret these signals in a way that the mind can understand it. The mind, like all other conditioned things, arise and pass away. Like the sun, arise and sets. Like the waves that rise and fall. Because they are conditioned. The mind is also conditioned. So the mind will arise and pass away. Now the mind is a vehicle for the impressions that come from the outside world and that take seat on the mind. The mind is a vehicle. This is why we talk about Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Because, it might feel to some that, all we talk about is this. We just keep going on and on and on about Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Can we not talk about anything else for a change? The problem is, this is where the problem is. Your mind is not attached to anything else. If your mind was attached to this winnowing fan, let's talk about this all day. If your mind was attached to those flowers, put there in front of me, let's talk about it all day and night. But why talk about something you're not attached to? If attachment is the cause of suffering, why talk about something you're not attached to? Have you ever done any counseling? Right? Guy comes up to you. He says, I've got a problem. What's your problem? Work. Very stressful. Oh, really? Very stressful. All right. Let's talk about your brother. Why? Just. No, but my problem is at work. Yeah, I know. Let's just talk about something else. But I'm paying you for my time. For your time, I'm paying you for this. Why don't we talk about the real problem? Yeah, let's talk about something else. You think you've gone mad. You think you need counseling. There's no point beating around the bush. We need to get to the crux of the problem. You take your car to the mechanic, right? There's a problem with the seat belt. It doesn't lock. You explain to your mechanic, hey, mister, right, my seat belt just won't lock. Okay, let's have a look under the bonnet. What? No, seat belt. Yeah, let's start with the bonnet. There's nothing to do. No part of the seat belt is in the bonnet. Can you look at the seat belt, please, because that's where the problem is. Yeah, we'll come to that later. And he wants you to pay for his time by the hour. Will you? This is why I say there's no point talking about anything else. Because this is where the problem is. I have told you time and time again. I'm not looking for a regular set of listeners to keep coming here every day. I'm not looking for a fan base. If you think I'm going to be selling t-shirts in a while, no. You're not going to have any merchandise. It has my name on it, right, with the picture, and mugs. No, we're not going to do any of that. So I'm not here to build a fan base. I don't have a Facebook page, which I'm trying to collect some followers, right? I'm not in that business. In all fairness, I don't want you here. I don't want you anywhere. That's where I want you. To not be anywhere. I don't want you in the Deva worlds. What's the point? Don't come here if your dream is to be born in the Deva worlds in the next birth. There are other places where you can go. Don't come here if your next stop is a Brahma world. If that's where you end up, that's a different story. But if that's where you're heading your goal, then I think you're wasting your time here. Because to go to the Brahma worlds, you have to enjoy life there. You have to want it, you have to yearn for it, and then you have to do the things that's going to get you there. To be born in the Deva worlds, you have to want it, you have to yearn for it, and you have to do the things that's going to get you into the Deva worlds. But every day you come here, we're not talking about any of those things. We're talking about Nibbana. So to get to Nibbana, you have to want it, you have to yearn for it, and you have to do the things that get you to Nibbana. These are not the things that get you into the Deva worlds, or the things that get you into the Brahma worlds. So if that's where you're heading, then you're on the wrong bus. So, you're all intelligent people. Some of you new faces, but still I'm talking to you about Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana because you're intelligent people. A lot of people, this won't think, the penny won't drop for a long time. But I will make the assumption, and I think it's a reasonable assumption to make, that you're all intelligent people, you're all educated people, and when something's explained in a reasonable manner, you can understand it. So I'll still talk about it. If it doesn't make sense, we'll talk about it again, because this is all we need to understand. This is all we need to figure out. There's no point beating around the bush. This is the problem we need to work out. We are all cursed with a mind that arises and passes away. I use the word cursed deliberately. We are all here to be happy, aren't we? I don't mean the monastery. We are all here living, breathing things to be happy. The problem is you've come here with a mind that arises and passes away. Like going to the shop with a bag with its bottom cut off. Now you go shopping. This is your bag. You want to do your shopping. You buy the things from the shopkeeper, put them all into your bag, right, while the bag's on the table. You pick it up and then you walk home. By the time you get home, there's nothing in the bag. Now who do you complain? The shopkeeper, right? Whose fault is it? Shopkeeper? No, it's the goods, isn't it? What is it then? It's you, because you picked up a bag without a bottom and you went shopping with it. How silly is that? So you've come into this world looking for pleasure with a mind that arises and passes away. How silly is that? Which tells me actually you're not even serious about pleasure. Because if you are serious about pleasure, you would have come here better prepared. When someone turns up for a meeting, right? They don't have a notebook. They haven't prepared for the meeting, right? You can tell immediately, this guy, he doesn't know what he's talking, he's just waffling. He's not come prepared for the meeting. What do you say? Hey dude, you haven't come prepared for the meeting, right? Why are you wasting my time? You're not serious about this, are you? And then you really give them a piece of your mind, don't you? Say, next time you come, please come prepared, otherwise you're wasting our time. So you've come into a world looking for pleasure and you haven't come prepared. So I don't believe you're serious about it. Because you've come into this world with a mind that rises and passes away, like going shopping with a bag without a bottom. I don't mean pants bottom. I mean the bag doesn't have a bottom. The latter would be even worse, of course. Don't you think so? How can we expect to be happy when we've been cursed with a mind that arises and passes away, and that arising or the passing away does not happen to your liking? This is what we need to figure out. You must understand that there's a fundamental problem here. All the gold in the world can be given to you. All the money in the world, all the riches in all the nations and all the continents put together can be laid out in front of you. But you can't enjoy it. What a shame. It's like you've gone blind. Now they can bring Pablo Picasso. They can bring Leonardo da Vinci, and you can get all the painters in the world to come and paint beautiful portraits of you or whatever in front. But what good is it to you? Because you've gone blind. Similarly, you've come into a world looking for pleasure with a mind that arises and passes away. How can you expect to find it? How can you expect to find joy when you have come handicapped? You're handicapped, seriously. When people don't realize these things, this reality, this truth, they try to create a world for them, expecting that no, pleasure's still there. The problem's not with me. I just want to somehow try and keep it. I experience pleasures in some moments. I just want to prolong it for as long as I can. I just want to sustain that pleasure. Don't know why it doesn't. It just escapes me why. But I'll keep trying. People are so resilient. You've got to give them that though. They're so determined. I'm so determined to get my pleasure. I'll just keep trying. How long have you been trying? An entire samsara. Wow, you're so determined. Don't let anyone tell you that you have no determination. That is a big fat lie. Don't let anyone tell you that you have no commitment, because that's a big fat lie. You know, when you go for a job interview, right? They ask you, right? Show me. Prove to us that you are a determined person. What can you say? Entire samsara. Entire samsara. I haven't given up seeking pleasure. Show me someone more determined than that. I still haven't found it, but I'm still looking for it. And I haven't given up. Oh, you're so determined. See, that's the best case you can put forward. So next time at your job interview, right? I'm a very determined person. You can put it on your profile. A very determined individual. Everyone can put it, right? Even cats and dogs can. Determined individuals. So determined to find pleasure, I'll stop at nothing. And in the pursuit of pleasure, seeking pleasure from a material world, right? Look at all the things that you have had to protect. Again, you're protecting the wrong things. You know, people spend an entire lifetime protecting their houses, protecting their children, protecting their spouses. I don't know why people are so worried, because after they die, they're going to be back there anyway. Right? Someone who's so precious about their house, and that's all they care about. They live their entire life obsessed about their home and protecting it as with every ounce of energy that they have. Right? After they die, if they have not severed their attachment to the house, where do you think they're going to be back? They're going to be back there. So I don't know why protect it so much. You're going to come back there anyway. Don't worry, no one's going to take it from you. You're going to be back there. Your children, don't try so hard to protect them. You'll be back with them, don't worry. Some children say, come to the monastery. You know, children who are about the age of your children, they come to us and they explain to us, Swami Nohansa, I have trouble sleeping at night. Why is that? Oh, my dead mother, she keeps coming back to haunt me. Please help me. If I got $1 for every time I had someone come up to me and say that, I'd be a very rich monk by now. But alas, I don't charge for my services. We should change that. People protect the wrong things. The things that people protect are the things they're going to be back to anyway. Don't know why they protect these things. The real thing that's worth protecting is really your human life. Because that you're probably not going to get again. It's not your children, it's not your house, it's not your husband that you need to protect. That you will get again. By your human life, very seldom does one get back their human life after they've lost it. Again, see, material things. And again, a human life, I'm not talking about just a body and just being able to be alive. That's not why we protect our human life, is it? This is our visa. Having been born a human being, we have intelligence, we have the capability and the power to understand the Dhamma. That is why this life is important. How important is human life to an Arahant? I'm talking about his life. How important is it? No importance at all. No importance at all. Zero importance. Why? Because they have won the biggest battle. So the purpose of human life is really to win this battle. And once you won it, now you don't need it anymore. So we really need to figure out this arising and passing away business. That's the important bit. Until such time, your interactions are going to be with the outside world, which is pointless, which is useless. You can never be content if you look for happiness in the outside world. People say be content. It doesn't work like that. It simply doesn't work like that. The only way to be content is to understand that there's no point in expecting. Because the things that we are used to expect, the things that I used to want, are not things that bring me pleasure. Therefore, I'm not fussed whether it's black or white. I'm not fussed whether it's big or small. I'm not fussed whether it's thin or fat or tall or short. I don't care. I'm not fussed. Now you can be content with whatever you're given. This applies both for lay people as well as monks and the clergy. Just because you become a monk doesn't mean you are content. A monk with no understanding of the Dhamma lives a very miserable life. A very miserable life. This is why sometimes when people come and they want to ordain, I tell them, hang on, hold your horses. There's no rush. What matters is not you ordaining. What matters is your comprehension and understanding of the Dhamma. How much you have been able to let go. That's what matters. Not ordaining. Because if you have all these attachments in your mind, all these yearnings, all these desires, and now you become a monk, now there's no way to relieve your vexations. You want to watch TV. If you come here, you're going to have a tough life from there on. You want to read the newspapers. You come here, it's going to be very tough for you. You like watching movies. If you come here, it's going to be very tough. You like going to a gig, going to concerts, listening to music. If you come here, life is going to be very difficult for you. You like pizza. If you come here, life is going to be very difficult for you. I tell you that. No, because I should warn you, right? Because there may be those who, either for yourself or those people you know, perhaps for your children, maybe other relatives of yours, you're wanting for them to ordain. Because sometimes, right, when you have problems in life, people think ordaining is the answer to those problems. That tells me that they have no understanding of the Dhamma. Why? What is the cause of suffering? Not being ordained, right? The Buddha said very clearly in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, monks, I proclaim that the cause of suffering is not being ordained. Did he say that? No. He said the cause of suffering was attachment. Have all of you come along to one of our ordination ceremonies at the monastery? No? You should. Sometime you should come around, because it'll be interesting for you to observe it, see what goes on. Because in the procession that we have from start to end, there's one point where the senior monk, gets the young novice monk to, after he's handed over the robes to him, gets him to sit down and of course shaves his head. And there's one point at which the senior monk removes all the attachment from that person's mind. And therefore, when you ordain, all your problems go away. Is that possible? No. This is what I say. If you have no understanding of the Dhamma, living a celibate life, living the life of a monk, is going to be horrendous. Because you will have all these vexations, but you won't be able to relieve yourself. When you become a higher ordained monk, Upasampada Bhikshu, now you have to abide by 227 precepts. It's only 5 for you guys. 227. Yeah, where do we start? Even such things like self-gratification is prohibited. You know what I mean? You can't indulge in that. That is prohibited. If you engage in an activity like that, then you have to go in front of a gathering of bhikkhus, 20 or so, and you have to confess what you have done. And then they'll get you to go through a period of parole, where you have to fulfill certain duties. You will be treated like a newly ordained monk during that period. It doesn't matter how many vas you have, you'll be treated like a newly ordained monk. You'll have to be the last in the queue no matter where you go, and then of course people start asking questions. Why is that monk all of a sudden at the end of the queue? I thought he was a senior monk. Now try answering that question. And then they'll get you to live in solitude. This is the punishment for it. Even something as simple as, because in lay life, self-gratification, you don't even have to think twice. But as a high ordained monk, that's prohibited. Why? Because the life of a monk is one to attain Nibbana. That's why. Is to dedicate your life, commit your life 100% for the purpose of Nibbana. Not simply abstaining from unwholesome deeds. That's not what the life of a monk is for. Because that, if you abide by the 5 precepts, all good. If you abstain from the 10 unwholesome deeds, good. But where does self-gratification come in the 10 unwholesome deeds? It's not lobha, dvesa or moha. That comes in raga. Because you're not causing harm or hurt to anybody else. So therefore, it's not an unmeritorious deed as such. But for a high ordained monk, that's prohibited. And there's a punishment that comes with that. So this is what I say, becoming a monk is not the answer to all of life's problems. It is an answer to one of life's very big problems. And that is having to dedicate a large portion of your life to finding the 4 requisites. Sivapassa. Food, clothing, shelter and medicines. These things you get for free. You don't have to work hard for it, because of devotees who are generous and they provide some of what they earn for their own living, for charity, they give it away, and you can sustain yourself on the 4 requisites without having to work for it. That you get, and the other thing that you get, which exceeds in value above all the 4 requisites, is Satpurusha Sevane 24/7. To be in noble companionship 24/7. Not once every Sunday, not once every Saturday, but 24/7. You wake up, there's a noble person next to you. Before you go to sleep, there's a noble companion next to you. You go to eat, there's someone sat next to you who's a noble companion, a Kalyana Mitra. Constantly reminding you, are you doing something with raga or dvesha or moha? That's not right. What you've done there is not right. How many of your friends talk to you about when you say, hey, you know what, I went to the movies last night. Fantastic movie. What do they say? That's raga. What are you thinking? Going watching a movie? Are you mad? How much must you have been vexing to watch that movie? Is that what your friends ask you? So that, in lay life, you lack seriously. Noble companionship. But the point I was trying to explain to you is, I don't want any of you to think that becoming a monk is the answer to all of life's problems. It's not the answer to suffering. It's the eradication of attachment that is the answer to all suffering. That you can do either as a monk or a lay person, but as a monk you can do it much more vigorously. Because you're constantly under watch. Is that a bad thing? No, that's the best thing you could ask for. Constantly under watch. Constantly being watched. Are you doing something with raga, desha or more? Stop it. Why are you doing that? That's bad. That's wrong. Always advice comes like free-flowing tap. Advice and admonition. Because our goals that we have at the monastery here is not how much money we've made. It's not how many letters I have after my name. It's not what my education qualifications are. What I'm constantly being assessed on is how much raga, dvesha, moha do I still have left. And every time there's some advice that's being gifted to us by Guru Hamlo, it's always him talking repulsively about raga, dvesha, moha and telling us off. If you are not dedicating every waking hour to practicing the path, could you ask for anything better? If you are serious about Nibbana, could you ask for anything better? Because there's nothing for him to gain out of it. At your workplace, if your boss is encouraging you to be at your desk, don't waste time, right? Make sure you do all your work on time, right? Make sure you finish this report before you leave for the day. Is he doing that very generously? No, because if you don't do it, then there's going to be repercussions for him as well. So again, it's a you scratch my back, I scratch yours business going on there. But in noble companionship, it's not like that. Because there's nothing for the other person to gain. This is commitment-free giving. No strings attached. In its truest sense. What we need to divorce then is really attachment. And the mind can only attach to Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. This is why we always talk about it. Like I said, the mind can't attach to these flowers or the beetle leaves or the mic or any of these physical objects. The mind can't even perceive them. You can see them, yes. But you're only seeing because of Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. These are the five aggregates as we call it. In other words, this is how your brain has interpreted the signals that it has received through the five senses into a language that the mind can understand. It's like your computer. If you scan a photograph, now you put your photograph under the scanner, flatbed scanner, close it and you press the scan button. Now the computer has an image. But to the computer that's just zeros and ones. The computer knows nothing about the photograph. It knows nothing about who's in the picture. There's an MP3 file. Again, to the computer, it's just zeros and ones. At the lowest level, it's just zeros and ones. Because that's the only language that the machine speaks. Zeros and ones. So no matter what is being input into the computer, through the peripheral devices, be that a scanner or a microphone or some kind of other sensor, ultimately, the computer will only understand zeros and ones. Likewise, your minds will only understand Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, no matter what is being fed through the senses. So Rupa, of course, you have Rupa Rupa, Shabda Rupa, Gandha Rupa, Rasa Rupa, Sparsha Rupa and Dhamma Rupa. This classification is based on where that input came from. If it's a sight that you saw through your eyes, then those Rupa are called Rupa Rupa. See, that's simply just nomenclature. It's just a naming thing. It's not that Rupa Rupa is any better than Shabda Rupa. There's no comparison. It's like you can't compare apples and oranges. So Rupa Rupa, Shabda Rupa, Gandha Rupa, Rasa Rupa, you get the gist, right? This is just a classification based on where it came from. That's all it is. Gandha Rupa, Rasa Rupa and Sparsha Rupa. So that's the sense impression on the mind. The sense organ making an impression on the mind. The example I use sometimes is the photograph. If I ask you, who's in the picture? You say, that's me and my friend. Well then, who's that? So I'm pointing at the person holding it. So you hold a picture and you show it to me and say, that's me and my friend in the picture. So if that's you and your friend in the picture, then who's the person holding it? Do you get the idea? So it's not the same person, but it's neither no. It's not the same person, it's not the same person either. It's an impression of the person. It's an impression of the outside world object. That is Rupa. So that comes from the outside world. The false impression or the false understanding is that brings pleasure. That is the problem. That is why you opened your eye to take in the Rupa, expecting that to bring pleasure with it. You thought Rupa and Ashvada, they come together. This is what we thought. Rupa and pleasure come together. Shabda and pleasure, they come as a package. That's what we thought. But they don't. Remember the two processes we talked about? Two distinct, unrelated processes. One brings you vexation, the other brings you pleasure. The process whose output is vexation can be fed with Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. And the only thing that process will put out is vexation, never pleasure. With the second process, the only thing that you can input into this process is vexation, and the output is going to be pleasure. So when there's no pleasure, or when there's no vexation, there can never be any pleasure. This is the working of the mind. The best mind scientist or psychologist that ever came into this world, this is the analysis he gave of the mind. He's talking about you. He's talking about us. He's talking about the biggest problem that we weren't able to crack without his help. To think that he figured it out without any help, that's a miracle. That's simply a miracle. The funny thing is, right, we talk about Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, but none of us will ever even be able to perceive Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. We're only talking about it because we heard it from him and it kind of makes sense. Okay, prove to me that there's not a sixth one. There's Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana and Chamala. Prove to me that that's not the case. Can you? No. Because we can't even perceive them. but it makes logical sense. And when you put it into the doctrine, it works out. And you figure out that actually attachment causes suffering. Yes, it makes sense. This is how we come to accept it with conviction. It makes logical sense. Seriously, I don't want any of you to take this by faith. Blind faith has no room in the path of the Dhamma. Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, you can give it any other name. It doesn't matter. Rose by another name smells just as sweet, as they say. Right? But that's not what matters. What matters is you need to understand how this operates, how the mind works. So with the arising and passing away, this is the mind that arises and passes away. And I think I've given you previously the example of I think it's a ferry wheel. Yeah? In a carnival you have a ferry wheel. When someone sat on the wheel and the wheel's turning clockwise, then of course those people who are sat on the ascending portion of the wheel will have to go up. It doesn't matter what their choice is. Halfway through they decide, you know what, no, actually I want to go down. Can they? No. You're going to have to wait until the wheel has done its full rotation, and then you can get out. But once you're on it, you have to be there now. So Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana have no choice. It would be foolish for us to think that they have a grudge against us. Who? Who am I talking about? Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. They don't have a grudge against you. It's not like Rupa comes and says, oh, wait, I'm going to completely make your life miserable. No, Rupa doesn't say like that. Neither does Vedana, no Sanya, Sankara, no Vijnana. They don't say like that. You know what? If you really want to learn equanimity, Upeksha, who should you learn it from? Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara. Because they simply don't care. They exemplify Upeksha. Because it doesn't care one bit about what's going to happen to you. Doesn't care that you love them. It will just pass away when it's time to pass away. If you want to learn equanimity, learn it from Rupa, learn it from Vedana, learn it from Sanya, Sankara and Vijnana. And the end goal is really to feel about them how they feel about you. This is like being in a relationship where only one partner likes the other one doesn't care. You not been in relationships like that? Or at least been in times in those relationships? Why won't you care about me? Can you show me that you care about me? Please. Why do you talk to me like that? Show me that you care, darling. Show me. How some people get on their knees begging for the other person to show them that they care. In the face of Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, you get on your knees. Don't you? We all do. We get on our knees in front of Rupa. Please show me that you care. Please don't go away. Please don't leave me. Oh, please be with me. I love you forever. It's a sad, sad love story. That's the best love story, actually. Your undying love. If there ever was a story that could be told that demonstrates undying love, unconditional love, who should feature in that? Who should feature in that? Put your hand up. Because you love Rupa unconditionally. You love Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana unconditionally. No matter what you do to me, darling, I love you. Isn't that what you say to them? Time and time again they've hurt you. Not intentionally. They neither love nor dislike you. They have no connection with you. And it's like that time when you're somewhere in a gathering, right? You see a girl across the room. She doesn't know that you like her, but you like her. Right? Now you have a crush, but it's not reciprocated. So you don't like that person talking to other guys in the class, right? Because already you've made her yours. Ladies in the house, you of course apply it the other way. You all got experiences, haven't you? No? Am I the only person who's been in love? So the other person has no idea that you love them, you care about them, you want them. They have no idea about that. So they'll just go about their own business. They'll come in when they like, they'll go when they like. They'll talk to whoever they like, and they'll not talk to whoever they don't like. But you, on the other hand, you have set your expectations on them. You like them. You're head over heels in love with them. But do they know it? They don't know it. If I ask you, how would you best describe, what's the best example you can give me of something that is like an arahant? Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankhara Vijnana. Why? They have no feeling. They have no attachments. It doesn't matter to them that you are going to cry when they pass away. They'll still pass away. The purpose of their arising is not to make you happy. Because they have no vested interest in your happiness or your sadness. It just doesn't matter to them. My appeal to you is treat Rupa the way Rupa treats you. In the simplest way to put it, treat Rupa the way Rupa treats you. That's where we need to get to though, isn't it? Don't be so nice to them, that's what I'm saying. Just make that relationship fairer. Because right now it's so unfair. You're loving someone who doesn't love you in return. You think that's fair? Isn't that why you've come here for counseling? Really, isn't that what you're saying to me? Swami Nuhansa, this Rupa, oh I love it, doesn't love me back in return. You're all here for counseling, right? Isn't that, if I ask all of you, isn't that your problem? Swami Nuhansa, I love Vedana, but it doesn't love me back in return. Please help me. Sanya, Sankhara and Vijnana, I love them to bits, but they don't love me back in return. I ask them to wait, but they don't. They go away. I ask them to come to me when I want them, but they don't. They come when they want to. Like when you go to the counselor and complain about your husband who doesn't come home on time. I want him to spend time with me, but he doesn't. See, you're all here for counseling. Jetavanaarama Counsellors Private Limited. Counseling service. Because ultimately that's who you're complaining about. Isn't that who you're here to complain about? Isn't that who you're here to complain about? Who are you here to complain about? Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. And what is the complaint? They don't love me in return. So now you want me to help you. Yes? How do you want me to help you? Do you want me to get them to love you? Well, if you want me to get them to love you, then it's not you I need to talk to. Get them here. And you can all leave. I'll talk to them, and I'll change their mind, and then I'll convince them that you are so deeply in love with them, and then for them to love you back in return. Okay, so next day, if that's what you want, that bus you come here, don't you come. Fill it up with Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana and send the bus. Then actually we can start on time. Because we don't need to check Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana at the checkpoint. Because they're like arahants. They have no intention to hurt anybody. They're so pure, aren't they? So pure. Free of all defilements, free of all attachments. All I'm asking you folks is treat them like they treat you. Is that so difficult? Thinking about it, it should be so easy, right? Treat them like they treat you. In other words, treat them like they deserve to be treated. You know, if you had kids and when they were younger, right, before you had any understanding of the Dhamma, kid goes to his dad and says, "Dad, right, I'm being beaten up at school." What does the dad do? He beats the child. He says, "Don't you ever come home and tell me that you got hit. Next day you get hit, give him what he deserves." Give him a bit of his own medicine. Right? Before understanding the Dhamma, this is how we used to teach our children. Don't ever come home and complain that you got hit. I don't want to hear that. Be a man. Grow some. You can fill in the other word. Right? Be a man. Show them what you've got. If they're going to be harsh to you, if they're going to hit you, you hit them back. So likewise, folks, all I'm saying is treat Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana like they treat you. Don't be any more nicer than they are to you. Don't be any more harsh than they are to you. Just treat them like they treat you. But what do? We suck up to them. What's the best love story ever wrote? You thought it was Romeo and? That's not it. It's whatever your name is and Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. The most faithful love story ever told. How pathetic. So sad. But again, I must emphasize, the problem is not with them. You are cursed with a mind that arises and passes away. And that arising and passing away does not happen to your will and command. This is the problem. If it happened to your will and command, then you could say, right, okay, arise. Now they arise. Now wait. Okay, now pass. And then they pass away. This is what anicca is. Right? Remember, this is why we talk about udavima and vayavima, not ativima and ativima. For arising to happen, there have to be conditions. Hetu. Hetum paticca sambhutang hetu bhanga nirujjati. All of that is contained within this word anicca. The fact that arising happens due to causes is a very important aspect of understanding anicca. Because if you don't work out, if you don't understand that it happens due to causes, then the false conception, the misconception is, it happens to my liking. Your liking doesn't feature anywhere in the causes for Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara or Vijnana to arise. And it doesn't feature anywhere in the causes for Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara and Vijnana to pass away. Your liking doesn't feature anywhere there. Avidya samudaya rupa samudaya, tanha samudaya rupa samudaya, kamma samudaya rupa samudaya, ahara samudaya rupa samudaya, nibbati lakkanam rupa samudaya. Where did your liking feature in that? Doesn't feature. These are the causes which give rise to rupas, vedana, sanya, sankara, vijnana. When those causes cease to exist, now rupa, vedana, sanya, sankara, vijnana cease to exist. And their vehicle, their mode of transport is your mind. And your mind has a nature of arising and passing away. Therefore, they arise and pass away. Forget all that other stuff I explained to you just a moment ago about the ahara, all that was just extra information. Put all that to a side. For rupa, the mode of transport is your mind. So just like a passenger has to wait for the bus to come, for the bus to arrive, and then they can only go the direction the bus is heading. They can't go the other way. If they want to go the other way, then they've got to get off and get on a bus on the opposite side of the road. Right? So if you want to go one direction, then you've got to wait for the bus that comes to go in that direction. And once you're on the bus, you've got no choice but to go in the direction the bus is heading. When the bus stops, now you can get off. So this is exactly what happens in your mind also. Your mind arises. And in the mind that has just arisen, rupa, vedana, sanya, sankara, vijnana come and take seat. Now the mind passes away. And when the mind passes away, see, whose mind am I talking about here? The mind. I'm talking about the mind that you all have. The mind that is associated with the body that you all possess. This is your mind I'm talking about. This is the nature of all our minds. From the tiniest insect to mammoths. Every being, and devas and brahmas and all the beings in the four great hells, any being whatsoever, if they have a conscience or consciousness, it's the mind that arises and passes away. This is universal. What about the Buddha? He was different, wasn't he? No, he was the same. We all have a mind that arises and passes away. And it's only rupa, vedana, sanya, sankara, vijnana that can come and take seat in the mind. Nothing else can take seat here. Therefore, you can only attach to things that you know. You can't attach to anything that you don't know. Are you attached to Setolla? Do you like Setolla? Are you? Setolla? Yeah, you don't know. You don't know, so how can you? You can only attach to things you know. As a young child, in your cot, right? If you remember that time when you were just a baby in your cot, were you attached to the things that you are attached to today? To the cars and the houses and the gardens and the birds and the bees and the trees and the plants and the herbs, all these things, were you attached to them? Did you know? You didn't even know what money was. You were attached to something, the things that you knew about. Yes, those are the things you knew, right? The things that you knew, for you, were sources of pleasure. The moment something's brought in front of you, the first thing you want to know is, how is that going to bring me pleasure? Why? Because you're so determined. The first moments an object is brought in front of you, the first question you have to ask is, how can you bring me pleasure? Yes, madam. Yeah. Yes. However, you have the Dhamma, did you say? How do you learn the Dhamma? Yes. 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 Oh, I see. Right. I get your question now. Absolutely. Yes. I got it now. Right. So let me explain. It is important, absolutely, to have an understanding of the Dhamma. So you have to learn the Dhamma, right? We can't understand or comprehend the Dhamma before we learn it. But the only things that are worth learning are the things that are going to bring us our salvation. Everything else is simply a means to an end. The learning that you take, or whatever you learn about the Dhamma, if it's for the purpose of Nibbana, if it's the Dhamma that can help you to get to Nibbana, now of course, this is why the Buddha says, Saddhammo Paramadullabho. The Dhamma is what is most rare. If we or Venerable Ananda hadn't learned the Dhamma from the Buddha's teachings, right, none of us would have any Dhamma today. It is because he memorized all of the Buddha's teachings and then passed it down to us along with the other Arahants that we have the Dhamma today in the form of the Tripitaka. And our ancestors learned the Dhamma themselves, and then until books were invented or any kind of written form was invented, it was passed down by word of mouth. And that is how it came all the way. So of course people learned the Dhamma. So the Dhamma itself, until you get to Nibbana, is absolutely essential. And for that you have to learn the Dhamma. But for someone who has attained Nibbana, what is the point of the Dhamma? Now it's pointless. Because it's like a raft that helps you to get to the other side of the river. Once you've gotten across, you don't carry the raft on your back. You let it go, so that someone else can now use it to do exactly what you've done. But of course, as a child, as the lady very, very rightly points out, as a child, you need education, yes. But just think for a moment about the education that we received, and the education that that generally is given to all people in the world, young people in the world. This education that we have received, right? I myself speak in person about my own experiences. Growing up, I would even say 99.99% of all teaching that I received, all learning that I took on board, was nothing to do with my salvation. It was all to do with how do I survive in this world. How do I survive? Now I'm in this world, how do I survive? How do I tie my shoelaces? How do I write an email? How do I switch on the computer? How do I cook my vegetables? How do I turn on the boiler? How do I drive a car? How do I talk to another person? How do I make a sale? How do I make a presentation? How do I manage people? How do I give leadership? These are the things we learned. How do I shave? How do I grow my hair? Right? How do I clean myself? How do I brush my teeth? These are all things that we learned. How do I make money? How do I save? How do I invest my money? Which of these helps me to attain salvation? Which of the above helps me to attain my salvation? Absolutely none. Think about Prince Rahula. At the age 7, when the Buddha came into his dynasty that used to be his kingdom, right? Princess Yashodhara asked her son to go and speak to his father, who used to be his father. And at that point, the Buddha held Rahula by his hand and said, "Come with me." What a shame that was, right? At such a young age, how many things he should have taught the child? I mean, that's not an age to ordain anybody, is it? All those things that Rahula could have learnt. He could have learnt about economics. He could have learnt about warfare. Right? He could have learnt about horse riding. All these things that he could have learnt about. But would any of those things help him to attain his salvation? No. All of those things would have simply been a means to an end. What is the end? Death. Because at the point of death, all those things you have learnt, all the 99.99% of things I have learnt in my life, stops at the point of death. All of that would be attiyati, harayati, jigucchati. pointless, meaningless, essenceless, futile. While I live in this world, of course, I need it for my survival. I need it to sustain myself. If someone didn't teach me to walk, do you need to walk to attain Nibbana? No. But to live, so you can get somewhere to listen to the Dhamma, now you need to learn to walk. If some of you drove to get here, well, I can ask the question, do you need to learn to drive to attain Nibbana? No. But indirectly, it has helped you to get here so that you can come here and listen to the sermons. But learning to drive is simply a means to an end. After your death, now what's the point of having learned to drive? Because even if you are born a human again, what must you do again? Learn to drive again. All the things you've learned to do so far, you have to start to do again. Whereas Nibbana, now that's once and for all. If you become a Sotapanna, you don't have to become a Sotapanna a second time. Well, you can't, even if you wanted to. If you become an Arahant, that's it. You don't have to go through that process again. But let's say there was a young monk who was at the age 7, became an Arahant, right? Does this young monk not need to learn about the world? What do you think? He needs to. Why? To live. He needs to know how to go on arms. Nibbana doesn't help him get that. Where in Anicca Dukkha Anatta does it say how you go on arms? Where in Anicca Dukkha Anatta does it teach you how to wear your robes? Doesn't say that anywhere. Where does it say how to wash your robes? How to dry them? How to treat a wound? Where does it say that in Anicca Dukkha Anatta? That's not there in the Noble Eightfold Path. Because the Noble Eightfold Path is not the path to living a good, successful life. It's the path to becoming noble. In other words, it's the path to Nibbana. So that's all the Noble Eightfold Path pertains to. Nothing else. So even if you were to become an Arahant at the age 7, you will still have to learn about the world and how you survive in this world. You will need to learn how to wash your robes. You will need to learn how to, even if you're a lay person, right? For up to 7 days, someone who becomes an Arahant can be in a lay life. After 7 days, he will either have to ordain or he will pass away. So up to 7 days, you can remain an Arahant, even in a lay life. So in that time, this person, if there's something that he needs to learn, let's say he needs to get to a monastery and there's no one to take him, well then he still needs to know how to get there. So yes, we need to learn things, of course. My point is though, learning is only a means to an end. But what most people keep drilling into our heads is, it's nothing more important than knowledge. Learn as much as you can. That's not why we need to learn. We need to learn so that we can survive. Not learn as much as you can. Learn what you need to survive. But this is only true for those who are serious about Nibbana. If you don't care about Nibbana, if Nibbana is kind of secondary, right, I'll see it when I get to it, maybe one day, I don't know. Then, of course, you'll have to concern yourself about learning as much as you possibly can, because you don't know which avenues life might take you. Think about your O-levels and how many subjects did you do for your O-levels? I think when I was at school, I did about 11 subjects. Right? Some of those subjects, I did think to myself when I was at school, why the hell am I learning this subject? What's the point? I'm never going to be using this. But I had no choice then. And so I learnt it. But back then I couldn't foresee my future. What if I ended up doing arts? Because those were the circumstances in my life. Now, for instance, right, there was a point in my life when I was in a school in another part of the world, and the medium of education there was English, but they also taught Hindi and Arabic in that school. But I thought I was clever in making the choice to be exempt from Hindi lessons and Arabic lessons. That was a foolish decision. Not to my Nibbana. But today I talk to you in English. What if I knew Hindi? What if I knew Arabic? I could have given the gift of Dhamma to more people and done good and done service to other people. Why? To help them become more rich and successful and become entrepreneurs? No. To help them find the same salvation and the same bliss that I have found today. To help them get to that path. But today, all those populations of people, a lot of people in the world speak Hindi, and a large population of people speak in Arabic. But today I can't help them. But if only I'd stayed in those classes and took those lessons up, perhaps. So, for someone who's serious about Nibbana, all we need to understand is really, learning is a means to an end. But of course you have to learn the Dhamma, but that is also a means to an end. And that end is Nibbana. Once you have become an Arahant, now what is the Dhamma for? Because the last thing that you give up on going from an Anagami to an Arahant is your attachment to the Dhamma. Because we are attached to the Dhamma also. When you listen to the Dhamma, when you practice the Dhamma, when you do your meditations, sometimes you feel, wow, this Dhamma is so delicious, it's done so much to my life. And you find it so precious. But there comes a point in your life where that you figure out, actually that's also an attachment. And that is also an attachment to overcome. But don't hurry, don't be in a rush. Wait. Some people start there. They don't want to listen to sermons, they don't want to, listen to the Dhamma. Why? Because what if I attach to the Dhamma, Swami answered. All the other attachments they have, the attachment to the Dhamma is their problem. So that will happen when it happens. Don't have to force it on yourself. But no matter what it is, even if it's the Dhamma, again it's Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Right? The Dhamma that I'm talking to you right now, of course these are just words and you hear my sound, my voice, and that sound you hear. But as you hear the words and you hear the sound, in your mind, these are being translated into concepts. This is Arupa. Arupa Raga. You might have heard of it. Kama Raga, Rupa Raga, Arupa Raga. Right? Kama Raga is these attachments to material things. Kama Raga. Rupa Raga are attachments to Rupa. Rupa in the form of both sound and sight. Not necessarily sound and sight, but the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that come through sound and sight. And then Arupa Raga is again Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, but it doesn't have an associated Rupa. You can't represent it. For instance, I say mother. You can draw a picture of your mother. But I say motherly love. Can you draw it? What does motherly love sound like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? I mean, physical, feel like. You can't answer those questions because that's arupa. There's no rupa associated with it. There's no form associated with it. It's simply a concept. Human rights, what does it look like? Dhamma. Dhamma rupa. Because Dhamma is not necessarily Buddha Dhamma. Right? Yeah. It can be any type of... Dhamma is basically what you bear. It's what you bear in your mind. The etymology of the word Dhamma. Yamak Dharanawada, that's Dhamma. Sorry for using Sinhala there to our online listeners. But it's whatever you bear in your mind. It's a concept that you bear. That is what the Dhamma is. So that can be Buddha Dhamma. It can be science. It can be anything. Loka Dhamma. Right? So chiefly it's going to be Loka Dhamma and Buddha Dhamma. Loka Dhamma helps you to succeed in the world and how you live in the world. Buddha Dhamma helps you to attain Nibbana. But they're both Dhammas. So even if it's the Dhamma, again in your mind, that's still Dhamma Rupa, Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. So even to that, we are attached. And for as long as we are attached to that, there's going to be suffering. Because why? The mind will arise and pass away. So, we need to understand really that there's a fundamental problem, and the problem is with us. When you understand that I am cursed, and again I use this word deliberately, I am cursed with a mind that arises and passes away, you will realize that there is nothing now I can do to fix the problem by looking outside. Because you have been cursed. Again, it's like going shopping with a bag with no bottom. No matter what you put into it, it's going to drop. So the problem is not with the shopkeeper, it's not with the items you put into the bag, it's the problem with the bag itself. And if you went shopping with a bag like that, then you're a fool. So for us to think that we can be happy, right? For us to think that we can find happiness living in this world, where the only way that our mind can perceive the world is through Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, and then to have come into this world with a mind that arises and passes away, that's the recipe for disaster. But the Buddha never says that the cause of suffering is arising and passing away, because that you can do nothing about. But attachment, you can do something about. Just think about it. What if he had said, just what if he had said, arising and passing away, that's the problem. Of course, you and I, we don't have the wisdom to figure out that it's attachment that's the cause of suffering. Otherwise, we would all be Buddhas. Right? If he had said, arising and passing away was the cause of suffering, now we would all be trying to do what? Stop either arising or stop the passing away, or try to control it. That's what we'd all be trying to do today. Isn't that what we've been trying to do all our lives? Because we all sought refuge of the wrong Buddha. That's the problem. All those people who claim to be Buddhas, and everyone who came into our life and said, because what does a Buddha do, really? A Buddha comes into this world to teach you how to find happiness, how to find your salvation, right? So all these other people who also claim to be Buddhas, they also came and said, I will teach you how to find happiness. And what did they teach us? How to control, how to try to, not how to, but how to try to bring in the sights and the sounds and the smells and the taste and the touch that you like, and then keep away the sights and the sounds and the smells and the taste that you don't like. So all our lives we expended our valuable life trying to do just that, in the hope that one day it's only the sights and the sounds and the smells and the taste that I do like that will be mine, and nothing I don't like will ever come my way. That's what we thought was the path to happiness. How's it working out? Any luck? But you are also determined. If it's the last thing I do, I will get those blooming Rupa and Vedana and Sanya and Sankara Vijnana that I like, by hook or by crook. Or you just wait one day I'll do it. Such determination I have never seen in my life. you should be worshipped on the altar. Such resolve and determination, unparalleled. Shameful, isn't it? Just thinking back at our own lives, all those abhisankaras that we used to do to find happiness. We were digging a deep well, not knowing that there's no water. We just kept digging and digging and digging and digging. There never was water. There never is going to be any water, and we are still digging. Not realizing that actually what we are digging is a big fat grave. Sometimes we dig so deep that once you look up, you can't even see daylight. We've dug so deep. Now there's no one to save us, no one to pull us back out. And then we are completely lost in the darkness. Just consider how lucky you are. Just take a moment to reflect on that. To have finally, after this long journey in samsara, where you can see no beginning. I doubt even the Buddha saw a beginning to samsara. He probably knew how samsara began, but although he never spoke of it, because he said, don't ask me that question, it's not something you'll ever understand. But I doubt even the Buddha saw the first birth of a being. Because in one sutta he says, right, if you were to, this is the Anamatagga Sutra, if you ever get a chance to read, he says, monks, if you ever were to go out there, travel the world, and bring back every leaf of every plant and every tree that you can find, every twig, every branch that you can ever find, bring it back and then slice it and dice them into bits of 4 inches long. Into bits 4 inches long. And then pile them all up. He says, now start counting how many mothers you have had in samsara. So he says, take one bit, that's your mother. Take the next bit, that's your mother's mother, as in your grandmother. Take the third bit, that's your great-grandmother. Fourth bit, great-great-grandmother. He says, if you keep going on, counting this as you do so, he said, you will have consumed all the bits of twig and leaves and grass that you will have gathered, having gone all over the world. But you still have not exhausted the mothers of the mothers that are yet to be counted. And for him to have said, because we're talking about the Buddha here, right? He doesn't make a guess. Buddhas don't make guesses. If he doesn't know it, he'll say, I don't know it. But if there's something he says, then that is the truth and nothing else. For him to say, look out at the vast ocean. The amount of tears that you have shed on behalf of the same mother. So in this birth, let's say, you are my mother. In maybe not last birth, maybe not in last 500 births. But the 501st birth, going back, you've been my mother again. Right? That way, the same person, the number of times that they've been your mother, and you have cried because you've lost them. If you collected all the tears that you shed, that exceeds all the amount of water in all the seas on behalf of one mother. Now what about the times, madam, when you've been my mother? And when you've been my mother? Haven't we all been mothers and fathers to each other? Haven't we all been brothers and sisters to each other? And husbands and wives, and parents and children. Now imagine just one person here to have been your mother, and then a brother, and a father, and a sister, and a grandmother. How long might we have come in samsara? Remember, that's not just, human life we're talking about. What if when you're a deva? What if when you're a brahma? In some brahma worlds, their lifespan is 84,000 kalpas. 84,000 kalpas, 84,000 eons. So I doubt even a Buddha has seen how far back he needs to go to see the birth of one being. He probably knew how it happened, but he probably didn't see the arrival of the first being. In samsara, and he talks about the first being coming onto this planet, right? But that's for another day. But my point being, right? All samsara, we did all these abhisankara, but they were all a means to an end. Compared to who you've been in samsara, folks, you are so poor today. There's not a single one of you who hasn't been the Sakra, the Sakkadeva. There's not a single one of you who hasn't been a wheel-turning monarch, Sakriti Raja. Not one of you who hasn't been one. And when there's a wheel-turning monarch, all 4 human worlds are under his reign. So all the riches that you can ever imagine, that's all yours to keep because you're king. You're the emperor, the greatest emperor. So compared to that, how poor are you today? Why? All of that was simply a means to an end. When death came, you had to give up everything. But if you had become a Sotapanna in one of those births, now that would be yours to keep. If you had become a Sakrudagami, that would be yours to keep. If you had become an Anagami, that would be yours to keep. The only thing that is yours to keep are the noble attainments. So this time that you have in this human world, this precious life that you have, how much of it do you want to spend on something that you're going to have to give up? Willingly or unwillingly, when it's time to go? I mean, what is the point? I'm not talking about, now don't go and, don't feed yourself, don't clothe yourself, don't find shelter, right? These things, of course, we have to do. But try and keep it to the bare minimum. Because all the energy that you spend, all the time that you spend trying to find food and shelter and clothing, right, is time that is taken away from the time that you have towards Nibbana. Just ask yourself how much of your valuable human life in this birth have you already spent. Ask yourself how old you are now. Some of us don't have much longer to go. And that's if you have a natural death. But death doesn't come with warning. And if it's not a natural death, then we don't know who's next. But all of us here, are we not guaranteed of a death? All these faces I see right now, you're going to die, sir. Sir, you're going to die. And you matter. You will die. If you don't, you can come and meet me later on, but you will die. And you matter. You will die. That's for sure. I can't guarantee anything else. But if you want a guarantee from me, there's one guarantee I'll give you. You will die. I can look at you in the eye and say that. You will die. And when that day comes, as you near that day, moments before that day, you will look back at your life. This happens always. It always happens. You will look back at your life. Like, when I left the UK, I had no reservations about leaving there and coming here because this is all I wanted to do. But some of the people I used to spend my life with, they said, Machang, all these things we used to do together. How are we going to do it again? They used to talk to me. Why? Because now's the time to part. So you look back and you reminisce. All those memories, fond memories, you look back at them and you, this day will come to you. If you've at least been on holiday somewhere to another country, when it's time to leave, what do? You look back. What's the last thing you do as your flight is about to take off? You look out the window, and all those memories that you had, they start flooding back. If you spent a week, all the things you did in the week, well, this flight that is called life will take off. And then you're going to look out the window, and then you're going to think, all those things that I did in my life, none of it I'm now able to take with me. None of it. My children, I'm leaving behind. All the money in the bank, I'm leaving behind. I have 10 houses, I'm leaving them all behind. All my jewelry that I so loved and I cared for and I protected them in the most valuable safes, all that I'm leaving behind. My garden that I looked after so tenderly and so dearly, I'm leaving behind. My loving husband, I'm leaving him behind. My beloved wife, I'm leaving her behind. Please come with me, you will say. And then Mara will say, sorry, that's a ticket for one. That day will come, folks. When that day comes, all those attachments that you will not have been able to sever, they will come to haunt you. It will be so excruciatingly painful to leave all those things behind if by then you will not have given up your mental attachments to them. You will fail this test. You will fail this test. You will have failed life. That's a pretty bold statement. It must shock you to the core when you hear me say this. You will have failed life. You may have lived 60 years, 70, 75, 80 years of life only to have failed it. You will kick yourself in the backside, asking yourself, why did I not do anything for my own salvation? Oh why, oh why, oh why. All those monks that I met in my life, they always told me, they encouraged me to do something about this. But I left it. I left it for the next day. I left it for the next week, the next month. I didn't do my 15-minute meditation sessions. Because I thought, I can do it tomorrow. Why do today what you can do tomorrow, right? For some people that's the same. The way I learned it was, why do something tomorrow that you can do today? For some people it is, why do something today that you can do tomorrow? You can keep procrastinating, you can keep postponing this until the final test comes. When that day comes, fail. I don't want any of you to be in that position. I really, really sincerely don't want any of you to be in that position. Because I care. This is why I'm saying this. From the bottom of my heart I say this to all of you. I don't want any of you to be in that position. Why? Because you are making a huge commitment by coming here. Every weekend you're here. Some of you on Saturday and Sunday. Some of you on Wednesday, Saturday and Sunday. What a large chunk of your week you're spending here. So the time you spend here mustn't again be a means to an end. I don't want to hear from either yourselves or your neighbors or your relations the news that, Swaminatha, you know that lady who used to come to your sermon? Which one? You know that one who wore glasses? Short hair? Oh yeah, I remember her. She passed away. And she was crying. She was weeping on her deathbed. She was weeping on her deathbed saying, I can't leave my children behind. I can't leave my husband behind. Oh, my money, please give it to me. I want my money. I want my house. Please don't take it from me. Please don't let me hear such words. I beg of you. Please don't let me hear such words from the people that you leave behind. That's the biggest slap you can give me. It's worse than slapping me in the face. To have come along to these sermons, to have taken up that seat there, to have gotten me to explain the Dhamma to you, to talk to you, and have come to me and ask your questions, and me for have to answer them and all that, and then ultimately to hear that you died weeping and lamenting and crying your eyes out. I don't want to hear that. I want a peaceful death for you. Because you will all die. I can't say I want a peaceful life for you. Can I say that? No, where is peaceful life? I mean, forget Buddhists, even Christians don't believe in that. That's why they say rest in peace. Because if you could have lived in peace, then how come you rest now? So consider how lucky you are. I think about myself every single day. How fortunate I am. You know, I told you about my it's a little ritual I have in the morning. Before I wake up, I worship the Buddha, and then I seek forgiveness from the Aryans. This is my morning practice. And then I do my Baththaramulle, which is something we monks have to do, which is to reflect on why we use the four requisites. You know, like when you take meals, for instance, you will have done Nivathapa, Namadaya. Why is it I take a meal? So likewise, as monks, we have to do, why do I use a shelter? Why do I wear robes? Why do I take medicine? Why do I take food? So all these requisites, we have to contemplate what is the purpose of this. And none of this is for pleasure, but simply for my sustenance. And then what I do is I recite to myself this gatha that I found in the Lower Sangara. Kalakini Budu Kenekun Upadinni, Dukakini Minisat Bavalabaganni, Medakini Mesasara Duk Duralanni, Sudane Nikima Viri Anokaranni. I say it out loud to me every day. It's once in a while. It's once in a very rare while a Buddha comes into this world. Kalakini Budu Kenekun Upadinni. The advent of a Buddha is very rare. Dukakini Minisat Bavalabaganni. It is with much hardship and turmoil that one achieves a human life. Medekini Mesasara Duk Duralanni. You need both of these to overcome the suffering of samsara. Both, not one, both. So you need the Buddha, as in his Dhamma, his teaching, and you need your human life for this. Sudaneni kima virya no karanne. Oh dear people, why is it that you don't make an effort? Why do you not realize the value of what you've got? I say it out loud to me every day and ask myself, today is your last day. What are you going to do? Then I get up, I worship Guru Handru, and that's how I start my day. And the same thing I say out loud to me before I go to bed also. Because it's a constant reminder to me that time is the most precious commodity that I have. Remember we talked about that last week in the meditation session? Time's no healer, time's a killer. Remember I asked you, look at what time's done to you. Look in the mirror when you get back home. Whatever you see in the mirror, who did that to you? Time. What is the one thing you fear the most? What is the one thing you should fear the most? Time. Why? Because it's a silent killer. It's a silent killer. You don't know it's stabbing you on the back. You don't know it's dragging you to your death. But whether you know it or not, it's merciless. That's why you have to become timeless. Become someone who in the face of time is fearless. When time comes in their face, they can say, do whatever you like to me, because I have overcome time. Isaac Newton or Albert Einstein, they can't teach you how to overcome time. How to win the battle against time, no, they can't teach you that. For that you need the Dhamma which is timeless. Akalika Dhamma. The Dhamma which teaches you how to be independent of time. What does being independent of time mean? No matter what time does to you, doesn't matter. Why? Because what is time stealing from you? Your life. With every tick, with every talk, it's stealing your life from you. That life which you borrowed. Remember? If something's yours, you can keep it forever. If you have to keep paying something back, what is it? Something you borrowed. What have you been doing to life ever since you came into this world? Giving it back. Why? No, you borrowed it. So it's not yours to keep. You've got to give it back. Every tick is you paying it back. Every talk is you paying it back. And what do you get in return? Grey hair. What else? Oh, sorry, no hair. False teeth. Bad back. Prosthetic limbs. Eyesight, loss of it. Yeah? That's what you get back for it. Seriously, look after yourselves, folks. You need to look after yourselves. Because there's no one else out there who's looking out for you. Look out for yourself. To everybody else, to everyone else, you are simply a source of pleasure in their eyes. A source of pleasure or a source of pain. That's what you are. If you are a source of pleasure, they'll just keep digging you for it. Come on, more, come on, that's it, come on, give me more, give me more. If they see you as a source of pain, they'll find a way to annihilate you, to exterminate you, get you out of their lives. So if you really care about yourself, then it's time that you looked after yourself. Because I can't come and do that on your behalf. As much as I might want to, I can't do it on your behalf. I may be able to feed you, I might be able to clothe you, I might be able to shelter you, I might be able to treat you if you are unwell, but I can't save your human life on your behalf. I can't get you to walk the Dhamma on your behalf. You have to do that. The Buddha can only guide. You have to walk. He can only point you in the right direction. He can't hold your hand and walk you there for you. You have got to do it. So please don't come up with excuses. Please don't come up with excuses. Because none of those excuses will stand. When the ultimate test comes, none of those excuses are valid. They're all invalid. The problem is, the more excuses you come up with, you turn out to be an invalid. I understand and I agree. You will have lots of problems in life, right? As lay people, you'll have lots of things you'll need to worry about, and all sort of problems you'll have to fix. All sorts of people and neighbors and relations and loved ones you need to take care of. All these things you'll have to do. And I say, yes, do them. I'm not saying don't shrug your shoulders in the face of duties and responsibilities. Don't shirk off your duties and responsibilities. Do them, but please don't forget yourselves. Who's there to look after you? Yeah, you're looking after your children, you're looking after your husband, you're looking after your wife, you're looking after your son, you're looking after your neighbors and your relations, your grandparents, your parents. Who's looking after you? This is the question I have. Who's looking after you? Ask yourself all your lives, what did you do? You looked after other people. You looked after your business. You looked after the country. You looked after half of the world. But who looked after you? Everyone who came into your life, who said, I'm here to look after you. No, they were really looking after the money in your pocket. They were looking after themselves. That was simply a disguise. You have to look after yourself. Save yourself. That has to be the number one objective of your life. Save yourself. It's only the Dhamma that can do that for you, and nothing else. Not all the money in the world, not all the knowledge, not all the certificates, not all the jobs, not all the people in the world, not all the armies in the world combined can save you. Only the Dhamma can do it for you. And then consider how lucky you are to have received such a teaching. You really have a chance. All those people out there, no chance. All your friends who can't be bothered. How many friends might you have said to, hey, this is sermon. Please, just one time, just once, because I say so, why don't you come and listen to it? Maybe next week. Inshallah. It was always next week. Couldn't be bothered. No chance. Yet they are humans. They are humans. For heaven's sake, they are humans. They're all capable of doing this because they're all humans. Duka kini minisaddawa labaganne. How much must they have struggled to gain that human life? And they're wasting that away. All the people you work with, your colleagues, how many of them might you have approached them? Listen to this CD, right? Just one sermon, just listen to it. It will do wonders to your life. Oh, thank you. You went under the desk or some drawer, and that was where it was forever. Am I making this up? You are so incredibly fortunate. I can't begin to express how fortunate you are. I only hope that you understand how fortunate you are. I only hope you understand it. I can't give you the feeling that's in me right now. I can only give you words. I don't know if the words are making the desired effect. I really want you to understand this. My God, you are so incredibly fortunate to have received the Buddha into your lives, to have received his teaching, to be able to walk the path that the great elders Sariputta, Mahamoggala and Mahakashyapa did, to be able to walk the path that Bhadrakachayana did, to be able to walk the path that Yasodhara did. When they passed away, they gave an exaltation. They said, I have become victorious. There is nothing that can any longer defeat me. In the face of Mara, in the face of death, I have become victorious. O great Sir, O great Buddha, you have saved me. It's only another 2,500 years we have the Buddha's teaching for. And don't think it comes to you very easily. Because just ask yourself, right? How long did you, in your life, how long did you have to wait? In your life, how long did you have to wait to receive this teaching? I had to wait 30 years. How about you? For some of you will say 40, others will say 50, others will say 60, others will say 2 years before my death. Others will say 6 months before my death. You know something I find really, really sad? Some people, when they get diagnosed with terminal cancers, terminal diseases, you know the next thing they do? They come to the monastery. Why did you come here, madam? Oh, because I've been diagnosed with terminal cancer. When it's too late, that's when they want to come here. That's when they want the teaching, when it's too late. They knew they needed this all along. Otherwise, why would they come now? Right? They knew they needed this. They knew there was no other path. This was the only path. That's why they're coming now. But only they're too late. Now there's very little we can do for them. Because, you know, even right now, as I explain the doctrine to you, as I explain the Dhamma to you, you're able to understand it, you're able to reflect on it with a steady state of mind. But imagine if you just got a call, you went to the doctor, you got diagnosed with terminal cancer, you only got 3 months to live. While you're here listening to the Dhamma, is it really the Dhamma you're contemplating on right now? No. You're thinking about all the things you ought to be doing in the last 3 weeks that you have alive. That's what you're thinking about. This is why I say it's too late then. When your expiry date has been pronounced to you, it's too late. But you all have an expiry date, don't you? Check in your pockets. There will be a little paper about the size of an A4 or an A5. Unfold it. On the left hand side you will see birth. On the right hand side you will see death, and there will be a little gap for it, so you can put the date. In the middle there will be a picture of you, the younger model, of course, so everyone finds it attractive. Even the obituary, people must find attractive. On the top you'll say Anicca Sankhara. You know, if we did it in English, you can do it in English now, right? Because you've been coming to English sermons. Anicca Sankhara. Translate it into English for me. My life has been useless. Isn't that what it means? My life has been a waste of time. And then at the bottom they say, may they attain the bliss of Nibbana. Why all of a sudden? This is why I say, please don't come up with excuses. It would be such a shame. It would be such a shame to hear from some of you, or for someone you know, who comes to the monastery and says, Venerable Sir, that gentleman who used to come to your sermon, yes, he passed away. Oh. So what happened? He passed away crying. I think in the very first sermons that I used to do, I told you about how my mother related to me, how my grandfather passed away. My grandfather on his deathbed, he cried out loud. He said, fire, fire, save me from it, someone please. This is my grandfather I'm talking about. I will speak of him unashamedly to you, Because I want you to not be in that state. Because now I can do nothing for him. It's too late. So please, do something for yourselves. Look after yourselves. Because there's no one else out there watching out for you. You've got to do it for yourself. And the only way to do that is to understand the Dhamma. This is the only path to salvation. This is why we speak of the doctrine every time you come here. Because remember, the mind can only attach to what it knows about. This is why I say, these objects, the mind doesn't know a thing about. So how can you attach to them? The only things the mind knows of is Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara and Vijnana. We talked about Rupa. Vedana is the sensation that something's going on. Vimagdanim is knowing that something's going on out there. Sanya, the label you give it, how you identify it. Sankara, all the things you can do with it. Winnowing fan? It's a fan. So what can you do with a winnowing fan? You can fan yourself with it. You can hit someone with it if you wanted to. Right? All the things you can do with it. Sankara. And then Vijnana. This is the final decision you make about it. It's the totality of all the... You amalgamate all the other four. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara. And it's the answer you get with the Vijnana. And finally the decision that you come to. This is Ashvadai Sapaisarai. Pleasurable, joyful and essence-full. So this is Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. I want you to treat them like they treat you. That's what we need to get to. Treat them like they deserve to be treated. Because you know what? They treat you like you deserve to be treated. Why? You're foolish. So how do they treat you? Like fools. Are we not foolish to think that they can bring us pleasure? So they treat you like they should treat a fool. A fool's suffering is his own making. So try to reflect on Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana in those, from that perspective. It's not something to start to get into relationship with, because they'll never love you in return. They will not care about you in return. They'll arise and pass away at their will, at their fancy. Not when you want to and not when you don't want to. Your wanting has no bearing on whether they arise or they pass away. They happen because of causes. When the causes are in their favor, it will arise. And when the causes cease to exist, they will cease to exist. So the arising and passing away does not happen to our liking. But they come and take seat in a mind which you have all been cursed with, that has the nature of arising and passing away. So therefore, when the mind arises, these aggregates will arise, and when the mind passes away, these aggregates will pass away with them. So what's the problem then? Arising and passing? Attachment. Attachment is the problem. Because while you still have attachment, you have lost something you are attached to. Right? When your mother passed away, why did you cry? Not because she passed away. Because you lost something that you liked. You lost something you loved. If you had given up your love for her by the time she passed away, so what? This is why I said, I think I was speaking to a few people earlier on this morning. Lots of mothers are dying as we speak. Right? There's one mother. There's another one. There's another one. And another one. There's mothers dying out there. None of us are crying. Why? Not my mother. That's not your mother. That's why you're not crying. But the next call you get, mother's passed away. Now, we'll have to bring a mop to mop up all the tears. Why? When it's my mother, that's when the suffering starts. So, my equals suffering. Not death, not disease, not decay. My equals suffering. My attachment. That's another word for mind. Attachment causes suffering. The reason that we are attached is we believe that the things that we set expectations on are sources of pleasure. We believe that they bring us pleasure, we believe that they bring us joy. Because this is all based on the drushti, the wrong view that we had gotten from someone. Either someone or our own experiences. It can be our own experiences. Because ultimately, we're all curious, aren't we? We're more or less curious. We always want to know what's going on. So if you hear a noise coming from that side, now what do? I want to know what's going on. So what do? Turn your head. Now you see what's just happened. A moment before that, you wanted to know what was going on. Therefore, you were vexing. Internally, you were vexing to know what was going on. The moment you turned your head, now you know what's going on. So that question mark has been fulfilled. It's been solved. The question's been solved. So you had a problem, you have found a solution, and the solving of the problem is what brought you joy. So for you to experience joy again, you need another problem. Why after a heavy meal do you go and watch TV? Why does watching TV bring you happiness then? Because now you can no longer solve the problem of hunger. It's gone. So to be happy, you need another problem. What other problem? I like to watch TV. What's going on? What's going on in the world? What's the latest movie? What's going on out there? So now those problems are always being answered by the television. So you go and sit in front of them, in front of it. So really, life is nothing but problem, solution, problem, solution, problem, solution, problem, solution. So the day there are no more problems, you will no longer be happy. Why? There will no longer be any pleasure. Why? Because there's no problem to solve. Do you remember when you passed your exams? When you last did your O-levels or A-levels or whichever exam you did? Do you remember the pleasure that you got by checking your results? If you passed, of course. If you remember that experience, right? That was quite joyful, was it not? So pleasurable. Just getting your results and knowing that you had passed. Now to get that same pleasure, what must you do again? You got to sit another exam and wait for the results to come. There's no other way to duplicate that pleasure. You can't take pleasure and then copy and paste it again. It doesn't work like that. Because it comes as a package. If you want the same pleasure, you have to take the pain, now copy and paste that. The same circumstance, the same scenario, copy and paste the problem, and then find a solution to the problem. Now when the solution comes, now you have been relieved from the pressure, from the stress, from the anxiety and the anguish and the frustration and the vexation of the problem. This is what brings you pleasure. No pain, no gain. Because there's an alternative. Yeah. So because you have to offer something better than that. Why did you change jobs? Because you found something better. People don't give up something unless they find something better to go to. Right? So when you speak to someone and they say, yeah, okay, I get it, there's pain, but then without the pain there's no pleasure, so what's the deal, right? It's just half and half. I said, no, there's something better than that. You can have pleasure without the pain. Or rather, the no pain at all. No pain at all. You know, the example of having to scratch a rash is the best one to offer, because that is something that everyone can relate to. When you have a rash and you scratch it, now that feels good. Yeah. Yes. So that is the lack of wisdom. So, yeah, and besides, pleasure is not something that comes from the outside. Right? If you're hungry, buy 100 units. And if you eat a mouthful of food that has the power to sate your hunger by 20 units, now you are hungry by 80 units after you've eaten that mouthful. The amount by which your hunger has reduced is what pleasure is. So really, once you have completely expelled your hunger, you can no longer be happy. So it's only the reduction of pain. Reduction of pain is pleasure. When there's no pain, well, then there's no pleasure. So you like to be in pain? Well, they've got to nod to that as well. If you like to be in pleasure, well, of course, then you also have to like to be in pain. Otherwise, there's no pleasure. But there's an alternative. The alternative is to not have the pain in the first place. One way would be to get him or her, whoever, right, is to experience it for themselves, right? If you really say that pleasure is a good thing to have, when you relieve yourself from pain, well, why don't you go and inflict pain on yourself? Go and bang your head on a wall. In a little while, the pain's going to go away. And now that's very pleasurable. So what do you do next time? Go and bang your head on the wall again. So really then, I like people who have that kind of mentality because they're easy to get by. Someone comes and hits them, gives them a slap. Oh, thank you so much for that slap. Why? Because in a little while, the pain's going to go away. And then, that's going to bring me so much pleasure. Someone breaks their heart. Can you please do that again? Because recovering from a heartbreak is so pleasurable. I want to experience that again. Can you break my heart again, please? They can start a business, Heartbreakers Private Limited. So then, getting into a car accident, these are all pleasurable things then ultimately. Why? Because they're all opportunities to go and seek pleasure. Why? A moment later, your car has been crashed. Right? You take it to the garage, get it fixed. Now, it looks like new. Wow, nice. Would you rather that or not get into an accident in the first place? Would you rather the rash and scratch it or not have the rash in the first place? Would you rather have a headache and get a paracetamol or not have the headache in the first place? Which would you rather? Let them make the call. To an intelligent person, the answer is obvious. There's not a single occasion, not a single event, not a single instance of pleasure where there's no pain beforehand. Always followed by pain. Or rather, pleasure always follows pain. You have to have the pain before the pleasure. Yes. So to attain Nibbana, does one have to go through pain? There are certain hardships that you have to go through. For instance, sitting down for meditation. When you're first doing it, that can be like torture. You should know, don't you? It can be torture when you're first having a go at that, because your mind is always looking to open their eyes and look everywhere, look here and there, go and talk to somebody, because this is not something you're used to. But you're doing this for a bigger cause. You're doing this so that you will never have to suffer again. The question you asked, madam, was actually asked by from the Buddha, by a Deva who came and visited him on one occasion. He said, Venerable Sir, all these practices you ask your monks to go through, right? Some of the ascetic practices like Dhutanga, if you've ever come across or read about any of them. Have you heard of, you'll have heard of Mahakashapa, the great elder, Mahakashapa Maharatan Mahanse. So he was the chief among the Buddha's monks who lived an ascetic life. In other words, he endured a lot of hardships physically. For someone who's not an arahant, there will be mental hardships also. But for this monk who was a great elder, were only physical hardships, such as living under the shelter of a tree and no other shelter. Sometimes living in the open, no shelter at all. So when it rains, it wets his body. When it's hot, then he's got to endure that pain. And sometimes, he would only go to the first home to receive his meals. Whatever he received on the first visit, it was all he's going to consume for the entire day. So sometimes if they only offer him a biscuit, well, that's all he's going to live on the entire day. Don't try that at home. We are talking about people who used to live 2,500 years ago, and people who had zero defilements, right? Even if you could tolerate the physical pain, you would go mad simply because of the mental pain, right? So don't try that. But having observed people like Mahakashyapa, the great elders, some of the devas used to come and ask the Buddha, Venerable Sir, why do you get your monks to undergo these things? Why endure such hardship? This is the question even Mara asks. The Mara comes and asks, why does your monks go through all this pain when there's so much pleasure to be enjoyed in the world? Right? Why do they abstain themselves and renounce themselves from this worldly life and go and find the recluse, live the life of a recluse? Why do they do that? Because then the Buddha replies to that, it is so that this suffering is endured so that at the end of this process there is no more suffering. This hardship is endured because at the end of this is the hardship to end all hardships. This is the suffering to end all suffering. And therefore it's worthwhile. But that's not to say you must put yourself through physical torture, physical hardship or physical pain in order to attain Nibbana, right? Consuming 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day or 1 meal a day, which one helps you attain Nibbana quicker? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter really. Because where in the Noble Eightfold Path does it talk about meals, the number of meals? But the Mahasangha will have a code of discipline. And this code of discipline was not to confine some... Because actually in the first 20 years, where there were plenty of arahants, the Buddha had not even given out this rule, where you have to have your meals before 12 o'clock, before 12 noon. He hadn't set down that rule at that point. The first 20 years there were no rules, because the monks were self-disciplined. Why? Because many of them were arahants, free of defilements. So you don't have to rule someone and set in forth a code of conduct. But what happened later on was, some of those monks, because when they some of them would sit down for meditation all day, right? And then in the evening they might go out on their arms. And sometimes it used to rain. So when it rained, they would take shelter in someone's home, or perhaps in outside or somewhere in the patio or somewhere, waiting for the rain to subdue. And then people, passers-by who observed this, started to make complaints. They used to come to the Buddha and say, look at your monks. You say that they have given up lay life, but look at them. They go and they're actually spending the day at someone's place. Sometimes if it was a single woman who lived, or a widowed lady who lived by herself, a monk goes to get some alms, and then because it's raining, he waits until the rain subdues, and then it gets late at night. He wants to make his way back, right? But what an observer might look at this and go, look at that monk, what's he doing? Why is he coming out of that widow's house? What no good might he be up to? Therefore, the Buddha then laid out a rule of a code of discipline, and he said, make sure you consume your meals before 12, unless you have an ailment. If you're ill, then of course that rule does not apply. But otherwise, consume your meals before 12. So this was to protect the Sangha. Has nothing to do with Nibbana. Because before then, the monks were allowed to eat whenever they wanted. Because what matters is not how many meals you take. What matters is with what intention do you take your meal. That is why Viruddha Pratyaksha. Parisankayoniso pindapatan patisevami neva davaya. This is not for purpose of sport. Namadaya. This is not for the purpose of increasing my, what's a nice way to put it? Let's just say, no, I'm going to have to find a polite way to put it. You know how, okay, let me put it this way. You know how some people, they take food for stamina on the bed? To increase their stamina. Right? Some people consume foods for that purpose. So, neva madaya, purusha madaya sandaha neme. This is not for that purpose. Na mandanaya. This is not to fix up my body. To grow my muscles and get my six-pack. That's not what this food is for. Na vibhusanaya. This is not to look good. So that I have plump cheeks. Right? And a lovely nose. And a lovely skin, a good complexion. That is, why do people eat carrots? Right? So a monk is not permitted to take meals for that purpose. Yavadeva imassa kaya satitiya. This food is to sustain my body. Yapanaya. This is for sustenance. Brahmacharya anugrahaya. This is for the purpose of Brahmacharya, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. So, you observe precepts, and when you observe Atasil, one of the precepts would be Abrahmacharya Veramani Sikkapadam Samadhyami, right? So the the worldly meaning of that precept would be to abstain from sexual activity. That's what Abrahmacharya is. Or Brahmacharya is, right? Abrahmacharya Veramani is the precept that all monks abide by. And that's not necessarily, not simply to do with refraining from sexual activity, but also to commit and dedicate your life to practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. Because Brahmacharya is the Noble Eightfold Path. Brahmacharya anugrahaya. Anugrahaya is to support that. Iti puranancha vedanam patihankami. What pains I had to endure physically through lack of food is so that I can subdue those pains. Navancha vedanang na uppadesami. So I don't have to endure pains in the future through lack of food, malnourishment and things like that. So this is the pratyaveksha that monks, you will have heard monks in all parts of the world, not just here, we recite before we take a meal. So this is not just a stanza that we just say out loud. It's a reflection that we do. So the number of meals you take has nothing to do with how fast or how soon you attain Nibbana. However, when you take your meals, of course, like I remind you when you come to the meditation programs, don't take a heavy meal. Right? Because when you take a heavy meal, then that's not conducive to you staying awake. Eat knowing how much you need to eat. Only you can make that call. Decide the quantity that you need to consume. Not too much, and that doesn't mean too little either. If you have a headache, how many paracetamols do you need? An adult, how many paracetamols? Generally, 2. Is it okay to take 3? Generally, no. Is it okay to take 1? Still no. Because if the dosage is 2, then you need 2. So if only people looked at food as like medicines, now you would be taking the right dosage. Not too much and not too little. But just think about how you consume food at home. Do you take it for the purpose of sating your hunger, or do you take it for the purpose of satisfying your tongue? For sensual pleasure. Ultimately, well, you know the answer. You walk up to the fridge to get yourself a glass of water, but where does your hand stray? Box of chocolates, and then move to the freezer for the ice cream. Right? The leftovers from last night. Before you know it, the fridge is empty. If Nibbana is where you want to get to, then such practices are not going to help you. Why? Because every time you consume that food, 1, it's going to make you physically ill. All these problems of cholesterol and diabetes and all these problems are generally to do with not being able to control your diet. Right? And secondly, every time you consume these foods, when you don't have hunger, you take it for the purpose of pleasure, believing that food brings me pleasure. So whenever you think that food brings me pleasure, ultimately what you're saying is smell, sound, taste, touch. Actually, food has all five. Sight, sound. What about papadam? Sound, right? No one likes a soggy papadam, right? So, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. All five. The Buddha says, if you are able to give up your attachment to food, that's someone who has become an anagami person. Why does he say that? Because food brings you all five. Sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. Just think about, how much food has evolved from what it used to be to what it is today. How many different types of parippu there are? How many different types of bread? How many different types of rice? This is rice, for heaven's sake. How many different types and kinds of rice are there? Why? Because people seek pleasure from outside world objects. But this is because they don't realize that ultimately the mind can only take Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. And all Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana come in, arise, pass away, arise, and then pass away, arise, and pass away. So in the flash of a second, at a billion times a second, this is arising and passing away, leaving behind attachment, which only spells disaster. So contemplate on that reality. This is why I say you don't have to come to the monastery to attain Nibbana. You can do it at home. For those of you who can't afford or who don't have the luxury, if I may put it that way, if you don't have the luxury to come to the monastery and either ordain or settle down, then don't make that an excuse either. Some people think when they come, they leave their homely life and come into the monastery, then all attachment goes away. Because they leave all the worldly things they're attached to behind. Well, do you have one of these at home? No. So what happens when you become a monk? Now you get attached to this. So now where are you going to run? You don't have an alms bowl as a lay person. After you become a monk, now you have an alms bowl. The mind is such, it's like a leech. What does a leech know best to do? Cling and then suck the blood out of it. In other words, the mind cling and suck the pleasure out of it, thinking that there's pleasure in there. The mind is like that. So no matter what the circumstances, what the situation, what the scenario, what the event is, the mind will simply go and try to suck pleasure out of it until the mind realizes, until you teach the mind, hey, mister, no, pleasure never came from the outside world. So stop looking for something you're never going to get. You don't go to a barber shop and ask for bread. You don't go to a barber shop and ask for bread, do you? You remember our old chat? It was because of this fine couple that you got to listen to that story. With them I was talking about that, and then it came to mind, why would you ever go to a barber shop and ask for bread? No, why not? Why not? Because people will look at you and say something about it? Or is it because they don't sell bread in the barber shop? Because they don't sell bread in the barber shop. So for someone who goes to the barber and asks for a loaf of bread, is a mania, is a lunatic. Right? So likewise, if you walk up to someone and say, you are beautiful, it's mad. Because when does ever beauty exist in the outside world object? Beauty is not in the object, beauty is not in the person. Lovely, yummy, delightful, none of these things are in outside world objects. They're all concoctions of the mind. They're all fabrications of the mind. Artificial. Beauty is artificial. There you go. Beauty is artificial. Who here likes artificial beauty? That's the truth. All beauty is artificial. It's not true. It's not real. It's made up. It's a lie. The mind vexes. Now the mind receives rupa that it was yearning for. Receives vedana, sanya, sankara, vijnana it was yearning for, waiting for. Now relieved from vexation. That is what the mind says. I have just seen something so beautiful. How are we doing for time? Simple. It really is. Is figuring this out for the first time, that's the hardest thing to do. That's why you need a Supreme Buddha for that. To figure this out by oneself, without another's help. But when I talk about this, when you listen to it, when you comprehend it, when you contemplate on this, it makes perfect sense. Does it not? So once the penny drops, now it's a case of continually reflecting on it. Application. It's like you learnt math at school, and then you came home and you worked through your exercise book. You worked through the sums. You kept working through them until you realized, now I get it now. I really do get it now. Sometimes it might take you 100 sums to get there. Some of you, it might take 1,000 sums to get there. Others, it might just take a handful. We don't know that. But no matter what, you just need to work through them until you get it. So for how long should you be listening to the sermons? What's the answer? Until. For how long should you practice the Noble Eightfold Path? Until. For how long should you contemplate on the Dhamma? Until. Because that's how long you've all been so determined in seeking pleasure. How long did you seek pleasure? Until. That's why you still haven't given up. So resolved, I will do it, no matter what. I will find pleasure in it. I so will. The Buddha says, it's not there. What do you say? No. I'll find it. You wait. So reflect on this. And never come up with excuses. Please don't. Excuses will not get you anywhere. Come up with excuses for other things. Don't come up with excuses for this. For your Nibbana, for your salvation, don't come up with excuses. Because you know what? If you don't care, your workplace, you don't care. Your boss, they care. You do something haphazardly, don't care. How about your boss? They care. Your marriage life, you don't care. Wife, husband, they'll care. Your family life, child, you don't care. They'll care. Your friend, you don't care. They'll care. Your Nibbana, you don't care. Nobody cares. Do you see why this is so important? Because if you don't care, no one cares. So I don't want to hear excuses from any of you. Make every effort to come along to the sermons until you need it. For as long as you need it, please come along. I shouldn't have to say please. Should I? Do I need to sell this to you? Do I need to sell the Buddha's Dhamma to you? Come on, yeah, come on. Sale. We're going to put a sale next week. We're going to discount the Dhamma, okay? Thanks to the Buddha, sir. Thanks to the Buddha. Because I didn't come across the Buddha's teaching. If you and I would have met 5 years ago, we would have been talking about something entirely different. I'd probably be asking you how to be happy in my life. Because with your experience, I'd be asking you, sir, how did you face this situation in your life? How do you make money? How do you make investments in your life? Please teach me, sir. But today you come here. Because one of us found the Buddha first. That's the only difference. So the Buddha that I saw, I'm helping you see. And then you will help someone else see. This is why this is like a network. To gain membership of the most exclusive club. The club of Aryans. The world's most exclusive club. You can only join by invitation. You have to know someone who's also a member, otherwise no matter how much money you have, you can't become a member of this club. You have to become an Aryan first. And to become an Aryan, you have to have listened to the Dhamma from an Aryan. So this is why I say, please don't come up with excuses. Because if you don't care, nobody else will. Because everyone's destitute. Everyone's desolate. Everyone's lost. When someone's lost, how can they help you? You remember the song? Amadassana? Mammuladi? You should listen to some songs. So in the song, the words are, he goes and asks for directions. Literal meaning is he asks for directions from a butterfly. And the butterfly is lost. So the butterfly says, I can't give you directions, sir, because I'm lost myself. There's a deeper meaning, but let's not go there. What I'm saying is, if you can't get direction from someone who's also lost, so find your direction, find your heading, find your bearing, and until you do that, seek help, make use of it. How much do we charge you for these sermons? Because if we were to charge you, we had to charge a fair amount. Right? We would have to charge you a fair amount. Otherwise it's doing injustice to the Dhamma, right? So what would be a fair amount? How much? Come on, name it. Beg your pardon, madam? It can be different for everyone, but if you take the value of the Dhamma, it's priceless. It's priceless. So even if you gave up everything you owned, the Dhamma is more valuable than that, infinitely more valuable than that. So it's priceless. So therefore, what we do is we don't charge. We don't charge. The Buddha never charged anybody for the Dhamma, did he? But had he done so, how much could he have charged? Just think about other religions and other religious teachers and perhaps other followers, right? What they charge you for the promise of salvation, maybe not money, but other things, other rites and rituals that they expect you to do. Walk on fire, go hungry for a month, right? These are in other philosophies, in other religions. They expect you to do these things in the name of salvation. Hold your breath for so many hours. Don't eat for so many days. Give blood All these practices. Make sacrifices. Think about it. If you make a sacrifice and it's an animal you're killing on the altar, what's going to be the result of that? That's a bad karma, which is going to take you to the hells. Why did you do that? What was the purpose of it? Salvation. So you're doing completely the opposite of what you ought to be doing. So if the Buddha wanted to charge you for this, wanted to charge us for this, he could have charged us this entire universe. But he didn't charge us anything. And he found it, he realized it himself. He realized it himself. We couldn't have gotten it from anybody else. He was the sole person who knew this. And he gave it to us for free. Because this is the only thing that works like that is actually the Dhamma. Everything else has a price. Dhamma is priceless. Because with everything, it's a case of you scratch my back, I scratch yours. People say love doesn't have a price. It does. Why do people stop loving? Because, yes, what you're offering me is not enough for me to love you back in return. Therefore, I don't love you anymore. Kindness has a price. Yes, expectations. I will be kind to you for as long as you're also kind to me. But the Dhamma, where it becomes unconditional, now there is nothing that this is dependent on. This is unconditional compassion. We can all get there. I know, because you've spoken to me on various occasions, right? I understand. I think over the past months and years, we've come to know each other a little better. And when you talk to me, you talk about various problems that you have in your lives, and the various challenges that you have in your lives, and how you're trying to do this despite all the things that are going on with your lives. And hats off. I really do have a lot of respect for you. Because that is truly remarkable. Despite all those challenges, despite all the obstacles, you'll still keep doing this. That is what matters. Resilience. Keep doing it. The Buddha says, cry if you must, weep and lament if you must, but don't give up. He has given us this guarantee. If you do it without giving up, you will achieve your salvation. When it's the Buddha who's given that guarantee, who else do you need to vouch for it? When it's the Buddha who's given the guarantee, who else do you need to vouch for it? None. So let's all do this. We can all do this. I don't care what age you are. I don't care whether you're a man or woman. I don't care whether you're black or white. I really simply don't care. So don't come up to me with those excuses. I don't care. Because you can. That's why I don't care. If you couldn't, then I might care and try and do something about it. But you can. So no excuses. I don't tolerate excuses. I don't welcome, I don't entertain excuses. You can all do it. Whether you're at the monastery, whether you're at home, whether you're at the workplace, find opportunities to do this. Reflect on the Dhamma. That's all you need to do. Anicca dukkha anatta. Just continue to reflect on it. Because every moment, every minute you spend reflecting on anicca dukkha anatta, it might be just a tiny bit of those defilements that are chipped away. But so what? It's the pennies that amount to making you rich. Eventually it's the pennies that make up the pounds. It's the cents that make up the rupees. So it's these tiny bits that will ultimately cleanse your mind of all the defilements. Just do it. Like Nike would say, just do it. And you will achieve the results. That much I don't have to guarantee, because the Buddha has already done so. As he has already said so, I will countersign. So do it. And you can all succeed. We can all win this game. In the hope that we may never meet again. Do you want us to meet each other again in our next birth? Please don't. Please don't wish for that. Anything but. You should be able to, if you come here as a couple, husband, wife, right? You should be able to look at your wife's face and say, darling, I never want to see you ever again. This hopefully will be our last time I have to be your husband, hopefully. But before you got the Dhamma, what did you say? In every birth in samsara, I want to be yours and I want you to be mine. Because you thought that was what expression of love was. Didn't we? No, I've said that. Because that's what we thought expression of love was. But now you understand, if you really love someone, if you really care about someone, what is the real expression of love? May this be the last time we come together. Because I want you to find your salvation and I shall find mine. Because this is not a place where we can be happy, we can be joyful. Why? Because we are in samsara. The only way to be happy is to get the hell out of here. I will help you, you help me. I will look after myself for you, and you must look after yourself for me. Particularly if you come along as a couple, I think you have a real strength there. Help each other. Because then you have a Satpurusha at home. That's not to say if you're single now, go get married, okay? If you're single, now my question to you is, why the hell are you doing still at home? Come here. But if you're already in a relationship, help each other out. Ask the other person, honey, can you please keep an eye out for me? If you see me doing something that is something to do with raga, dvesha, moha, please can you just ask me, just point me? Just prompt me, honey, why are you doing that? It's not necessary, is it? But you have to be mature enough to take that on board. So give that noble companionship to each other, but first and foremost, look after yourself, because there's no one else to look after you. Okay. Do you have any questions before we conclude? All right. English? Okay. We will reflect on the Arya Maitreya and conclude the sermon with transferring the merits. Now, when you reflect on this Arya Maitreya Bhavana, and you think of may I and all beings in all worlds, the more you understand the Dhamma, the more you will realize how destitute they are, how helpless, and you'll really start to feel sorry. And you start to sympathize with all those beings out there, your friends, your relations, sometimes maybe your parents, your children, who still haven't got the gift of Dhamma. May one day they be able to realize what you have realized. Hopefully, may one day, may they be able to do so. Pass that boundless compassion towards them. Have a mental picture of them in your mind if you must. Then that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes I do the Arya Maitreya, the entirety of it, just contemplating on one person. I've done it plenty of times with my parents. It's my mother on one occasion. It's my father on another occasion. There's nothing wrong with that. So contemplate and have a mental image of them, and then expound that compassion towards them. Just as much as I have been able to find my salvation, may you be able to do so. And when you expound that energy, it will help them. Trust me, it will help them. May not be today and may not be tomorrow, but it will help them. Because what goes on out there is not just what meets your eye. There's lots of other things that are going on out there. Sometimes, I remember when I was a lay person, if I had to go and meet somebody who I didn't really like to see, I would do the Arya Maitri before walking up to them. And the response you get is completely different to what I was expecting. So there is essence behind that. So, if there's someone that you want to receive this Dhamma, for each of you, you'll probably have someone like that in your lives. It might be a husband, might be a wife, might be a mother, father, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, or maybe a daughter, maybe a son. Think of them. And then expound this boundless, infinite compassion towards them. But you can only do that to the amount by which you have been able to heal yourself as well. This is why look after me for you. By the amount by which you have been healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, you can wish for another person to be healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. Okay. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of birth, freed from the fire of decay, freed from the fire of illness, freed from the fire of death, freed from the fire of sorrow, freed from the fire of lamentation, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of suffering, freed from the fire of discontentment, freed from the fire of exhaustion, freed from the fire of disappointment, freed from the fire of clinging on to the five aggregates, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the suffering of samsara, freed from the disease of samsara, freed from the fear of samsara, freed from the fire of samsara, freed from the burning of samsara, freed from the sorrow of samsara, freed from the lust of samsara, freed from the flames of samsara, freed from the clutches of samsara, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. The karma worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the karma worlds. The Rupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the Rupa worlds. The Arupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the Arupa worlds. All worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from all the worlds. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Letting go is the only salvation. May I and all beings let go. Detachment is the only salvation. May I and all beings be detached. Being freed is the only salvation. May I and all beings be freed. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the bondage of lust, freed from the bondage of aversion, freed from the bondage of delusion, freed from the bondage of Mara, healed with the eternal bliss of Nibbana, 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 healed with the eternal bliss of Nibbana. Okay. Are you doing your 15-minute meditation sessions every day now? If you haven't started yet, what must you do? Don't start at all. Now, what must you do? Start right away. It's never too late. Still, it's not too late. One day it will be too late. Then I won't come behind you and say, do your meditation. Because you won't be there for me to say it. Or if you're like my grandmother, or if you become the state at which my grandmother is right now, I'll say it, but she won't know what on earth I'm going on about. So therefore I don't say it. Pointless. Don't get there. Don't let there be a day when you feel sorry for yourself. That will be a very, very, very difficult feeling for you to tolerate. The day you feel sorry for yourself, you won't be able to bear the pain. I tell you. The day you feel sorry for yourself, you will not be able to bear the pain. Before you get there, do what you need to do. And I will help you with that. But I can only help you if you need my help. And I know you need my help, one, if you come here, and two, if you do what I ask you to do. If you come here but don't do what I ask you to do, then I don't see how you need my help. If you don't come here, well, of course, then I don't know you need my help. So you have to do. Action. Action is important. Any one of you who's been in business, who's been in any kind of enterprise, you know, right? Action is what makes the difference. Doing it. All talk and no walk, pointless. If you talk the walk, you have to walk the talk. Some people talk the walk, but they don't walk the talk. So be someone who walks the talk. Because if you do it, You will achieve it. I promise you. I guarantee. Do it and you will reap the fruit. You will. It's been guaranteed. Set in stone. No question, no doubts. Do it and you will reach the fruit. How joyful do you think one day when you achieve that state? When you know all this hard work that I did put towards my Nibbana, it has paid its dividends. When you know that day you are free, Kina Jati. I have exterminated being, coming into being. Usitam Brahmacharya. I have completed Brahmacharya. This is what I told you earlier. Brahmacharya is Noble Eightfold Path. Usitam Brahmacharya. Katang Karaniya. Whatever there is to do, I have now done. Na parang ittattayati. There is nothing else that is left to do. Pajanati. That you will know through conviction. That is the day when you can go, as I said earlier, in front of the Buddha statue and say, Buddha, I have done what you have asked me to do. And then look at his face. You will see a small smile. You will. Do it, and you will see. The stone statue will start to smile. You will just do it and see. If it doesn't, you come and tell me. Okay, so we'll transfer the merits and we'll bring the sermon to a close. First and foremost, let us once again take a moment to reflect on the fact that it is because of the Supremely Enlightened One, the Perfect One, the infinitely compassionate Buddha, that we have the gift of Dhamma today. It is because of his infinite compassion towards all sentient beings and his dedication and commitment throughout samsara that we have this teaching, that we have the path to Nibbana. Let us also take a moment to pay our gratitudes to the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis, Upasak, Upasikas and the members of the Mahasangha who, since time immemorial, dedicated their lives and committed their lives to protecting the Dhamma, to preserving the Dhamma, as well as to conduct themselves in the Dhamma. It is because of their relentless efforts and their dedication and commitment that we have the gift of Dhamma today, having passed down to us through our ancestors. It is because of them we have the Tripitaka, which we can study, analyze and comprehend and help us redeem ourselves from the shackles of samsara. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Passing on merits to all the members of the Mahasangha who are resident at this monastery, including the Guru Hamdru, as well as all the other monks and the Anagarikas, as well as all the monks who have ever made any difference to you in your lives, touched your lives in any positive way. This is a moment to reflect on them. As well as particularly the monks who are resident in your local temples, as well as nuns who are resident in your local nunneries. It is them who are always by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. It is there you send your children to the Hampasal. And it is them who have always been by your side in times of misery as well as in times of joy. So this is the moment for us to pay our gratitude to them by passing on the merits that we have all acquired to them. May through the power of these merits they be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path. If any of them have today been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits they be able to redeem themselves and be born in the blissful planes. And may through the power of these merits they all be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transmit to Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead that we invited at the start of this sermon. All those beings who will have been mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, nephews, nieces, grandparents, co-workers, colleagues and so on and so forth. Anyone and everyone who might have touched your lives in any way, shape or form throughout this infinitely long journey in samsara. It is now an opportunity for us to transfer the merits that we have all acquired to them. May through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may they be able to redeem themselves from those woeful planes and be born in the blissful planes. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all those men and women who will have helped to make this event a success, either by inviting you to be here today or perhaps by organizing events such that you are able to come along and listen to these sermons in peace and comfort, perhaps by providing you with transport to be here today, or perhaps simply by offering you a space to park your vehicles, or perhaps by offering you a glass of water, perhaps by ushering you to a seat. Whatever capacity in which anyone might have helped you, it is now an opportunity for us to transfer the merits that we have all acquired to them, as well as those people who may not be resident in the country, but perhaps by joining from abroad and helping organize these sermons and also transliterating the sermons as well as propagating the Dhamma in electronic form to whatever capacity they are capable of. It is now an opportunity for them to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits they all be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of your families who are among the living as of today, your parents, your spouses, children, and so on and so forth, as well as your co-workers and those who have redeemed you or relieved you of your duties such that you are able to be here today and be able to listen to the Dhamma. It is thanks to them because they have taken on the burden of fulfilling your duties and responsibilities on your behalf. They have sacrificed their time on your behalf, so therefore, may they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of the armed forces as well as the police force who forever has dedicated their lives on most occasions to protecting and preserving the peace and harmony of this country and protecting our motherland in which we are today able to practice the Dhamma in peace and harmony, particularly in these difficult times where they are under immense tension and immense stress and pressure. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, as well as those men and women who will have lost their lives in the 30-year-long war that happened in Sri Lanka a while back. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, be their friend or foe. All of those beings are desolate and in despair in samsara. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. If any of them have been born in the woeful plains, may through the power of these merits they be able to redeem themselves from the woeful plains and be born in the blissful plains. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all those men and women who might have lost their lives in natural calamities such as the tsunamis, landslides, earthquakes, and so on and so forth, not just in our country but also in other parts of the world, wherever they may be, remembering for a moment that every man and woman has at some point been a mother to you, a father to you, a child to you. Bearing that thought in mind, let us take a moment to transfer merits to all of them. If any of them are today seeking merits, wherever they may be, may they be rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, as well as those men and women who have dedicated their lives to leading this country, protecting our nation, and developing our nation. It is thanks to them that today we have the freedom of time and the luxury to be able to be here today and practice the path and redeem ourselves from samsara. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, recollecting all the meritorious deeds that you will have conducted from the moment you left home all the way up until this point, all the thoughts, words and actions of merit that you will have all acquired, may the power of all the merits that we have all acquired today energize and empower every man and woman throughout this world just like yourselves who have dedicated their lives to practicing the Dhamma, to propagating the Dhamma and to realize the bliss of Nibbana, be able to do so. And may this merits energize them and empower them such that they may become arahants in the very near future, and may through them we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahatun Wahanses and Arahat Mehenin Wahanses in this blessed land in our very lives itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may through the course of all these merits, may you and I and everyone who will have helped make this event a success be able to become one of those Arahatun Wahanses, be able to become one of those Arahat Mehenin Wahanses in this very life, in this human birth itself, and in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnen nidetva, dvesha ginnen nidetva, moha ginnen nidetva, Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita tara vetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen Sukhitatar vetva Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo Nibbana parama sukhayen Sukhitatar vetva Nibbana parama sukhayen Sukhitatar vetva Nibbana parama sukhayen Sukhitatar vetva තුනුරුවන්ගේ සුවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ බැලෙන් සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝම නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of desire. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of aversion. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of delusion. May I and all beings in all worlds be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. May the noble triple gem be with you all forever. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.